Hey, what's going on? This is Andrew from the Happy Hearthstone Podcast, the longest running Hearthstone podcast in the history of space and time and cards. But for the podcast you're about to listen to, you better hope you're going second, because you are about to coin concede.
Greetings.
Hello.
Greetings.
My greetings.
Well met.
I greet you.
Greetings, traveler. Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello and welcome to episode... I forgot to turn off my air conditioner. Let's try that again. Hello and welcome to episode 140 of Coin Concede, Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. We also have a secondary goal this week, make our 5 a.m. guest giggle as much as possible while he is vulnerable and impaired. Joining you from Gadgets in New York, it's me, RidiculousHat. And, as always, our faithful companion, joined from Karazhan, California, it's Botticus.
Oh man, I'm excited about this show. It's already, based on the pre-show, it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, we have so many time zones right now, and anytime you have that kind of confluence of time, well, we see it in Arena. It's fun there, why can't it be fun in Coin Concede? From Turtle Beach, Scenic Turtle Beach, NSW, we have our good friend Midgame. How are you, Midgame?
Yeah, boy, I'm good. Doing well.
Well, welcome back. I can tell
very
you
much.
feel very comfortable here, which I'm grateful for. It's unless you're comfortable from sleeping on 13,000 quid mattresses.
Yeah, it's good.
What?
Yeah, I work in a mattress store and sell expensive mattresses, and when people don't come in, I sleep on them and watch esports.
To my understanding, you are actually required to sleep on them.
Yes, my boss does specifically request that I do that. That is where I did all of the seeding for the most recent Listener League.
It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. And from a very confused part of the world, from Azure Breeze Coast, London, we have the champion of the EU bracket and general person that we know in various spheres of Hearthstone content. We have Rebobson. How are you, Rebobson?
I am a general person.
Yes.
I'm
Well,
very
you're
much just half asleep.
you're a specific person.
5. I am a very specific person. It's true. It's 5:20 a.m. So I am kind of just adjusting to the general weirdness which has already taken place. Just kind of struggling to process things. So it's going to be an interesting episode. I've got no idea what's going on already, and just hearing about sleeping on comfortable mattresses is kind of just making me envious right now. Hopefully coffee cures my life.
Yes.
Hopefully.
I think if I look back at this episode in retrospect, I think we perfectly constructed the way to drive you as crazy as possible. By, like, making you exhausted and literally having you also guest with a mattress salesman. I don't think we could have really constructed that better. But yeah, thanks for coming on. It's I think when we went through the options, you were like, well, I can either start at 2 and go to bed after, or start at 5 and wake up before. And neither seemed really great, but our normal recording time was literally the worst hour of the day. So this is the best we came up with.
Yep. 2 a.m. And go to sleep after would have been, I mean, normally okay, but it was quite a long show. So it probably would have been like, I would have been going to sleep right about now had I done the show at your usual time. And then I would probably have died.
And we don't want that.
I don't want to die.
We want you to feel like death at the beginning and then get better at the end, as opposed to the other way around. So we appreciate your commitment to pain. And we've got some interview questions for you, but before we do that, for those of you that don't know Midgame out there, we'd like to make sure that you are reminded of his greatness.
Oh, that's cute.
Thank you. So, we know you're here in the Coin Concede community, but give us a little bit of a heads up about who you are for people that may not have heard your last episode or may not be in our Discord because they just haven't made the right decision yet to join it. How did you get on this
Watch out.
show, and how did you get involved in the community?
So I started playing Hearthstone just after Nax was released, by watching other people play it, getting keen on it, and then playing it myself. And Coin Concede was one of the early podcasts I got into, and I've been somewhat active, becoming more and more active as time goes on in the community ever since. And yeah, enjoying it. I now run the listener leagues, which is kind of cool.
From a mattress, as we found out, which makes me wonder exactly how arduous it is. But say, how has it been running the second season?
It's been good. There's been lots of positive feedback, lots of people having a good time, which makes it all worth it. I think that it was unrefined doing it the way I was doing it, because last time Cinder and I ran season 1, Battlefire was just about the worst thing in the world. So I decided to just do this one all by hand in Excel spreadsheets, despite the fact I'm not good at using Excel spreadsheets. So it took a fair bit of time, but as you heard from before, I was just on expensive mattresses doing it, so that made it fine.
That'll solve a lot of problems.
Do you think you would be better at Excel spreadsheets if you used a mouse?
No, because trackpads are far superior to mice.
All right, so for our listeners out there that have correct opinions that are not what you just said, go ahead and explain why you somehow believe that a trackpad is superior.
I mean, it's just multiple reasons. Don't need to worry about buying additional hardware. That's money saved there, space saved. You don't need to worry about, Hat was saying something like putting your laptop on your knees and using it on your leg. That just sounds inconvenient. You don't get all your cool gestures and stuff that you can do on a trackpad. You can't type and use the mice at the same time unless you're on a desk, and I'm a poor uni student, so I don't have a desk. So I mean, it's just quite clear that without a desk, a mouse is
A mice.
inadequate. A mice. It's
One
just
mice.
not good. Yeah,
Have you
so
considered
is one trackpad.
Have you considered a block of wood? They're pretty cheap. You can put them right on your lap.
I got one
and
behind
then-
me.
Yeah, you just put it on your lap, and you got a nice big space that you can
Yeah, but
move the
then I
mouse
also-
around on.
But I don't need one, because I got a trackpad. It's just
It's
more
Have-
convenient.
have you
Have
considered
so
the
you said
cumulative?
it saves you
Yeah.
money, but have you ever heard the saying "time is money"? And the amount of time that you would save from not having to scoot your little cursor
I
5
think-
inches at a time with
See, I
the
think
little
the
finger.
problem is that my time is not worth money because I spend it lying on expensive mattresses. So time, what is it? I don't know. I'm also a university student, so I don't. Time? I don't know. Doesn't matter.
So the
That I can-
argument
that
is
I
that
can agree with.
the argument is that trackpads are good because you don't matter. Is that?
Sure.
Did I summarize
Fine.
that? That's the
So-
argument
so-
you've been making here.
So really, they're perfect. If you're such a nihilist, then trackpads are the perfect tool for you because you
Yes.
just don't care about anything enough
Yes.
to have
Yep.
an efficient device.
Exactly.
This has been a moment in existentialism with Rebobson and Midgame. I'm glad you could be here for it. So
I welcome you to
Trackpads,
Coin
use one
Concede,
if you
the-
hate yourself.
The discussion about trackpads and mice for Ben in the Hearthstone for this week.
yeah, we're turning into Blizzlet slowly, where just we pretend to talk about Hearthstone, and so far we've talked about other things. And for another Hearthstone-related question, who has a better accent, you or Rebobson?
I mean, it's quite clearly me.
What do you think, Rebobson?
Yeah,
Okay.
Man.
I would agree.
I am definitely Team Rebobson here.
Yes.
I don't know about it. I don't know about this. I love you mid game, but I heard I barely know Rebobson like at all, but all it took was just hearing him on one UHL stream and seeing his face on there, and I was like, I like this guy, and I think it's 100% due to the accent initially,
That's
but
because
we'll see after the
you
interview.
said seeing his face. Like it's no denying Rebobson has a better face than me, but I have a better accent. So you got to kind of like separate the things out.
So if we had like no cameras right now, then you think you would win?
Well, it is a podcast, so we'll let people know when they haven't been watching the stream, and I think you'll find that I win. But the people watching the stream, they'll all be in your camp.
That's fair. I'm on your side, to be honest. Like, well, obviously, as far as I'm concerned, my accent's pretty normal. It's only when I started doing THL and UHL and all this other crap with a lot of Americans that everyone was like, "Oh my god, your accent's amazing!" I was like, "Cool, I can."
It was a good hat impression there.
Yeah, it was.
Excuse me. How did I get roped into this? I didn't even vote for an accent, and somehow I am immediately disparaged.
Look, we did it. We did a squeaky voice. It's got to be you. And everyone else here has normal voices.
Exactly.
Like, Bot's got a nice normal American accent. You've got a small child trapped inside a box of helium.
I'm sure I have a soundbite for this that properly expresses my frustration. Here, is this what I sound like to you, Rebobson? Is that me? Is that me to you?
Wait, can you actually do an impression of that?
We'll save that for the patrons after the show.
Can you just do an impression of that?
If you gibber, then I'll shroom brewer. But you were too busy giggling over the gibber.
You can't not giggle over the gibber.
I understand. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, if you become a patron, the raw audio, it's got some gibbering. Yeah. Every week.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
I don't actually remember what feral gibber sounds like. I was too busy dying.
It sounds like... That was pretty good. That was pretty good. All right, well, I have to stay true to my word.
No, Hat, you're supposed to actually do it, not just play the clip again.
Okay, so Botticus is going to interview Rebobson now.
I knew this episode was going to be great. So, Rebobson, as I was saying earlier, I don't really know you that well, but I'm excited to have you on this week. So, why don't you, first of all, how did you get your name?
Right.
Rebobson.
Rebobson. So, when I was in high school, I supported like the football team, which is where my family is originally from, which is Newcastle United. Soccer for any of you uncultured swine. And they had a manager when I was kind of in high school called Bobby Robson, and we shared the same surname because my actual name is Robson. Don't fish me. And you know how like teenage boys are very inventive souls? They just started calling me Bobby because, having a real name was too much hassle for them. So I was Bobby. Then they got even lazier, and they just kind of merged the two names together into Bobson. And then from that point on, it kind of developed about 1 bajillion different slight variations on it. I think my personal favorite was Captain Bob's Eye. But Rebobson was one of the things which came out of that. And then when I signed up to Hearthstone, was like, choose a name. I was just like, Rebobson. Yeah, I guess I'll go with that. And I've just kind of stuck with it since, and it's become who I am.
So what I got from that is that your name developed from Australian English.
Yes.
It was in every way possible.
Yep. So you just take multiple syllables and you combine them into the fewest number of syllables possible. From the great minds who brought you mushies. Probably my favorite bit of Australian English ever.
So it's kind of funny you say that, because for some reason I don't know why it is with your name, but I just started thinking of alternate ways to say your name, and I don't really know why, but if you've ever thought of maybe changing it, I might have some here that we'll try out over the course of the interview, see if you like any of them. Okay, so let's see. All right, Rebobson. So how did you get into Hearthstone?
So it was actually my girlfriend got me into Hearthstone. She used to play a lot of WoW, and she, at one point, just after I'd started my master's degree, which was in hindsight a terrible, terrible decision, being told about Hearthstone, not the master's degree, although arguably, she was like, "Oh my god, you need to try out this game. You'd love it." I was like, "Okay." So I downloaded it, tried out the tutorial with King Mukla. I was like, "What the hell's going on?" Then kind of like I really got into it then, but just like I liked playing it, and I played a ridiculous amount of a really kind of janky Dragon Priest for like a good 6 months and nothing else. So I got my Golden Priest before I got to like 50 wins with any other class, and that's where my love of Priest has stemmed from. And then, not like, it wasn't kind of until a good year later that I discovered kind of stuff on the internet, like people making YouTube videos, people making podcasts, people streaming, etc. And I was like, oh my god, there's so much more to this game that I had literally no idea about. And that was the point where I kind of like got really into the game and kind of became the manic obsessive you see before you today.
So do you still play a lot of Priest?
At the moment, no, but this is like the lowest point in terms of my Priest playing pretty much ever, because there's so much other stuff that you can feasibly play right now that I'm just like, no, I don't know what to play. Like, whenever I go into the game now, it's just like, I have like 12 different decks to play, and then I just pick one at random, and only sometimes it's a Priest. Only sometimes.
What is your stance on Quest Priest? Answer carefully. Oh god.
I love Quest Priest.
One of those.
Yeah, there's it was in like, I had one of the weirdest games I've ever played was against Risen in like a non-THL, non-listener league match. It was a game for like 30 packs in like a tournament that someone else organized, and I won as Quest Priest against Taunt Warrior by getting a Bone Drake into Syndragosa into Emeriss and Calamos. So I won the game with a 14-14 Calamos.
Jesus.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. I might be a little salty about some Quest Priest games, but we can get into that when we talk about ladder. So, Rebobson, how did you get into content
What is
creation?
happening?
This has
That's
got
my new
even worse
favourite.
than I thought it would. I'm so confused.
Yeah, the content creation side of things was just kind of like, I got into THL through, I can't remember who even told me about it now, but started playing in that, and then found out that all the content creation stuff there, the casting and stuff, was just kind of volunteers. So I was kind of like, I would like to give this casting malarkey a try. So I did that. My first ever cast was alongside Brasky, your boy. And I was like, oh, I think I'm all right at this, and I really enjoy it. And then like I kind of just got hooked on that side of content creation. So now I kind of cast everything that I feasibly can. THL, UHL, whatever, various Challenger Cups. But I realized that I should probably include podcasting in the content creation side, because I completely forgot that I did that for a second.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your podcast that I recently started listening to. It's Around the Hearth, right?
Yes, Around the Hearth. I don't know how that completely slipped my mind. It's early. Please forgive me. Yeah, so Around the Hearth kind of started when just, like, obviously our shtick is we're a bunch of guys who just met on the internet. Just because one of the guys, ZT Dubs, like over a year ago now, was kind of just put up a thing on Reddit, Facebook groups, etc. Just like, does anyone want to start a podcast? I want to start a podcast. And I responded to that, just like, I do. I want to start a podcast. So we kind of put one together. The earlier episodes that were under a different name have now been completely deleted from existence. So there's no chance of those ever seeing the light of day. We are kind of, I think we've got kind of a similar mission statement to Coin Concede, making competitive a bit more accessible and just kind of talking about everything feasibly possible. Just we're not quite as good, and we don't have a shroom brewer to kind of get the show going.
You guys need a soundboard. That's the secret to our cast, is the soundboard. Well, yeah,
we need
obviously.
a ridiculous hat.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna find one of those. He's kind of one of a kind.
I mean, they sell hats at many stores. You can just.
I'll probably sell ones that say ridiculous on them.
You can order those.
A ridiculous hat, but I don't have the ridiculous hat. Mine has Jake the dog from Adventure Time on. It's pretty ridiculous.
That sounds awesome.
It's great. It's from Japan.
We might have to get you to get that out if it's accessible later. So let's see. Let's hear about your league play experience. I know you obviously won the European division of the Coin Concede Listener League. I also heard that you did not do quite as well because you played in both leagues. And I was wondering if you ever thought about getting in like Discord with the person you're playing against so that they hear your accent and get distracted. Maybe you would have had a bit more success.
Well, I mean,
it would have worked against me.
Yeah. Well, it's just obviously, yeah, the EU Listener League I did win. My opponent in the final, I think I was just kind of their bogey opponent. Like, they just really hated playing against me specifically because I always brought the hard counter to whatever they brought. So I played them, I think, 3 times, and every time kind of won either 3-0 or 3-1. They were just like, oh man, I hate this guy. And in the EU Listening League, I'm probably not going to get like the same kind of reception towards my accent that people in the States would have. You guys are kind of way bigger on the whole British accent thing than the rest of the world. Everyone in Europe in particular thinks we're kind of assholes.
So
making a little note right here.
Yes. We know.
What about THL and UHL? THL and SA. Do you play an SHL as well, or just THL?
Oh,
there's too many HLs.
Yeah. So, THL is the umbrella, and then there's Rag League and Sylvanas League within that, which is what was previously SHL. Yeah, I do play in both of those, and I'm kind of having a stupidly good season at the moment. I've just set the record for longest win streak in THL ever, which is pretty nuts. The last time I lost was week 2 of last season. So I'm quite proud of that. But now it's kind of just at the point where the bubble is going to burst at some point. So before every match, I'm just like, oh no, I'm going to lose. Crap. But it hasn't happened yet.
So what do you think is happening there? Like, what do you think it's your prep going in? Do you think you're kind of getting the matchups you want? Like, why do you think you're getting all of this success in the league play? Is that like where you mostly focus your attention, is working on tournament lineups and stuff, or like, yeah, tell me how you are where you are.
Yeah, it's definitely like just prep. I don't spend quite so much time playing ladder at the moment. I always get kind of distracted and sidetracked whenever I try and ladder, so I'm not doing it so much at the moment. But like prepping for league matches and tournaments and stuff is kind of where I feel I do quite well. Like I always do a lot of kind of scouting out my opponent, what they've been playing, figure out what kind of classes I should bring to best counter them, and then spend a good while kind of thinking about these cards are good against these classes. I should put these in. And then when it comes to like actually playing the game, just kind of I've got like a little routine that I have to go through because I'm a creature of habit. I've got to be listening to Gang Signs and Prayer by Stormzy. that's like my match album.
That
And
is such a good album. Oh.
right. Like I listen to that album when I'm playing every league match, and it has served me well, very well so far. I think my main problem in the NA branch of the Listener League was the fact that I didn't listen to Stormzy while I was playing. Although I came very close to the top 8, but I did kind of forfeit my last match because I couldn't be bothered. I think I'd scheduled something to have like both my Coin Concede matches. No, sorry, like 3 Coin Concede matches, as well as both my Ragnaros and Sylvanas League match on the same day. When by the time I got to like match 4, I was just like, I can't be bothered. And that was around the time that I discovered that the NA finals would be kind of 4 a.m. in the morning for me. So I was like, nah, I'm out. I've done enough.
Rebobson be like, I don't know how I win so much, but the only reason I lost NA is because I didn't want to win. I'm trying to just wrap my head around those two concepts, and there's a lot of mental jumping jacks going on.
Well, I know why I win so much. It's because I prep like heck. Prep like heck. That's my new tagline.
And I'm looking at the deck that you are playing on ladder right now, and the preparation makes sense. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Well done.
Jesus. All right. Well, speaking of ladder, I know that you did say that I saw a couple of your tweets saying that you were really making an effort to queue for nationals. And I know based on the podcast I just listened to that you ended up qualifying. So I don't know too much about this tournament to like kind of explain more to me so I understand what this is.
Okay, so for the American listener base, possibly Australian as well, anyone who's not European, maybe. Blizzard kind of organized it's like the series of nationals tournaments, which is for 7 different countries in Europe. I can't remember which ones off the top of my head. It's like the UK, France, Germany. I feel like Poland might be in there. Kind of like the bigger European countries, essentially. And the idea is that the top 64 players, when it comes to HCT points from each country for the months of May and April, will qualify for like a big online tournament, which happens in, I think, 2 weekends' time. And then the top 64 from those countries will play out for like a $5,000 prize pool. And so kind of like my goal for those 2 months was just to get like a top 1,000 finish, which is not something I'd actually even done before. To just kind of try and get like 2 points for each month, and then I figured that would probably guarantee me it because there's not that many kind of super top players from the UK. You can probably think of like 4 or 5. So I was like, if I can come like 20-ish from the UK, that'll be me sorted, and then I can try and win like a couple thousand. So hopefully that goes well. But I'd have to beat aforementioned really top players in order to do so, and that'll be hard. I don't want to ever have to play against Meaty. That prospect terrifies me. That guy's good.
You've got quite a few good players. Like it's boar control would be pretty unpleasant. I hear Hunterace is good. George C is excellent. Green Sheep. There's a lot. Yeah.
Meaty, Paradox, Toast Monster. There's like the ones.
Isn't Jambray also?
Jambray, Sippy Wee. Yeah, there's quite a few. So like our global games voting was actually quite stacked, which is very surprising considering if you think about how well the UK did in the global games last year, as in failed horribly in everything that we attempted. So
Well,
maybe
just
this
like
time,
Australia.
yes, exactly like Australia.
Sapping Deathwing was great.
That doesn't. That. Okay. But yeah, I looked up the nationals rules. It looks like it is France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Russia, Spain, and the UK. I post a link in the show notes here as well as in the chat. This looks pretty cool. I didn't even know this is a thing.
Oh yeah, because NA gets basically all of the tournaments. I think they were like, maybe we should have a European tournament of some kind. Just one.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
APAC can get specific tournaments. I think Japan has a few of them, and China, of course, is kind of a region into itself. EU
Yes.
really, outside of the DreamHack tournaments, it doesn't really have a lot of local stuff, so it kind of makes sense. I'm glad they've added something here.
Yeah, me too. And I'm also glad to have managed to qualify, and now I just need to attempt to do well in it, which is what my next. That's going to be all of my try hard preparation for the coming week or so. Try and figure out what doesn't suck. And I've got some ideas about that. The deck that I've been playing on, ladder being the kind of only kind of guaranteed thing that I'm going to bring, because I just want to put it in as much as possible. Miracles.
You're muted, Botticus.
All right. So I had one.
We're professionals here on the
I
Coin
had
Concede
one-
Kenny
podcast.
Mark II.
Yes.
I had one more question on here, but it's already been broken, and it's probably not going to actually ban you from the live stream. So let's just go on to ladder, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, it's. I think we've already proven that Rebobson is a man of many talents, up to and including usually not swearing when we ask him to very nicely and repeatedly. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I mean, I've got a lot of practice with not swearing from around the hearth because we are also a family-friendly podcast. But it just means that when I do get an opportunity to be on a sweary podcast, like when I was on Into the Wild recently, I take the opportunity to swear as much as humanly possible. And I'm supposed to be going on Blizzlet at some point
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
imminently, so I am going to swear a whole lot there.
I
It's gonna
think,
be glorious.
yeah, Tier 5, Blizzlet, and Into the Wild are kind of the triumvirate of late-night podcasts. But I will say this about Into the Wild, there is only one Craig of Canada out there. Accept no substitutes.
Treasure. He is a treasure.
Yes.
Yeah, it was quite unfortunate that he was ill for the episode that I was on, so I didn't get to experience the full Craig. The full
Yeah.
Craig is what I'm calling
It's
his.
such things can only be doled out into the universe in sparse increments.
Yes,
Yes.
there can only be one.
Yes.
And when he dies, his essence will be transferred onto a newborn, and the newborn will come out of the womb swearing and singing at the same time.
I would expect nothing less. I resisted saying that sounds like the Rebobson story, but now I've said it, so here we are. So, ladder. Awkward segues. Botticus,
Nice.
how you doing on ladder?
Yo. Doing okay. So I hit legend on Monday with Recruit Hunter. And I just want to say that I could not have been more wrong about Oozling. Seeping Oozling is legit. I was wrong. I feel bad about it. You should probably play Recruit Hunter with Oozling and the Taunt minions, because I basically figured out that while playing it, the deck feels a lot like Spiteful Druid, where your early turns you just play stuff. You're just like, I'm just going to put stuff down, and it's hopefully I'm going to be alive, and then around turn 7, 8, and 9, I'm going to do some really broken, stupid stuff, and I'm going to have a bunch of dinosaurs, and I'm going to get to attack my opponent. And yeah, it was very, very effective. Actually, so Saturday I was playing some Malagos Druid. I was doing pretty good. I got up to rank 1, 4 stars, and then about 6:30 p.m., I lost a game, and I don't remember winning a game until 9:30 p.m., and I was rank 4, and I was, to say I was upset would be understating it by a lot. So the next day I queued up Recruit Hunter and just kind of shot up back up to rank 1, and then kind of finished it off. The next day, my hatred towards Quest Priest comes from my first final boss that played Amara, and then Baleful Bankered it, and then I was about to kill them, and then they Amara'd, and then they Zola'd it, and then I was about to kill them, and then they Amara'd, and then I lost slowly after that, and it was unfortunate. But the only other thing is that my Recruit Hunter list does not play Deathstalker Rexar, and I know most people are still playing Deathstalker Rexar, but there's one video of Stan Sifka disenchanting it because he thinks it doesn't belong in the list, and I tend to agree with him. One thing I found while playing the deck is I was never short on, or I was almost never short on cards. I was very rarely low on cards, and my issue is that yes, sometimes in your bad matchups it can help. But like the one I point to the most is Odd Paladin, and then playing Deathstalker Rexar, sometimes you clear their board. Sometimes it doesn't play very well into like their level up turn, because sometimes you're like trying to set up for Rexar and then they level up and then they're all out of range. But then also just like a lot of times it felt like you invest 8 mana and sometimes you just don't get the beast that you need to get, and then it feels like you slowly start to fall behind. And so I just cut it from the list. I didn't miss it. I feel like the problem with it is that you see the beast and you're like, okay, that build a beast is really good. Like the amount of mana it costs for the stats that I get is really good. But then you have to add 2 mana on top of it, and it just, I don't know. I think overall it's just going to I don't think it's going to give you the percentage points that you are looking for when you could just be playing other cards. But as Apex Predator is saying in chat, I could just be wrong again, and I'm willing to be wrong again, but personally I just feel like a lot of times you can invest 8 mana and not get the card that you want, and then you have to invest another 2 mana and hope that you get the card that you want, and it just kind of feels like it spirals out of control when I'd rather just be hitting them in the face with dinosaurs.
What do you run instead of Deathstalker Rexar?
I play a Dire Frenzy. It does a similar thing. I actually wonder if it should just be like a kill command, because it felt like 9 times out of 10, whenever I actually like Dire Frenzied to win, it was just because it was giving me 3 extra damage. It wasn't so much that like I was getting the extra beasts, which it did matter every once in a while, but most of the time it was just like, I'm doing this and it helps me push through a taunt, or it helps my creature survive the taunt, and then I'm gonna have better draws, but it usually doesn't come down to that. So it's essentially the same thing that Sifko's playing. I just played a lot. I didn't play Stitch Tracker either, because this, like, as I was saying, I was never really running low on cards. So, like, I don't want a very understated minion when I'm not running low on cards.
Yeah, Stitch Trackers just seem like it's quite a rubbish card for what you kind of want to be doing. Like, you either kind of get a big thing, which is just going to be in your hand forever anyway, or you get, like, it's just a Discover a Saronite Chain Gang. And there's
Yeah.
probably like more proactive stuff you can be doing, like not dying. Because 3-mana 2/2s are quite bad when it comes to not dying, which is all you really want to be doing for turn 1 to 5.
In the few games that I played with it, one time I thought it'd be a really great idea to grab a Keleseth off it, and then played Keleseth without even thinking. And of course, it doesn't work when there's a Keleseth in your deck.
Yes. For those listening
Yeah.
at home, by the way, there's still a 2-drop in your deck when you play a Keleseth. It's your Keleseth. So be aware that you have broken the condition on which Keleseth is relevant. But you did get yourself a 2-mana 2/2.
Yep.
Feels
Yeah.
good.
Well, and Stitch Tracker
was-
made a lot of sense when Recruit Hunter was being treated as like this trick deck, right? It was being treated as a meme. But as it's kind of grown and evolved, much like how Q-Block has, it's the focus is different. We saw early builds were either super all in on the dinosaur synergy and were not about any other way of developing, any other way of like getting the Witchwood Grizzlies or even sometimes Savannah High mains. It was not about synergy and the powerful things you can do. It was about doing the one thing a bunch of times. So it's really been interesting to see the development of the deck as a really powerful, legitimate strategy that's been in a lot of successful lineups. And of course, we're seeing it kind of become legitimized through just the sheer number of hands that are on the deck. There's a lot of people that are working on iterating it. And Seeping Oozling, honestly, it just feels like a bigger nerfed Possess Lackey. And card's better as a 5/4 than it is as a 2/2.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna? Yeah, like I was saying, the turns where you Oozling and Play Dead just feel a lot like Spiteful Summoner, except that usually you have a minion charging to the face, but also if they kill the Spiteful Summoner without silencing it, like there's not enough mana usually at that time to be able to silence the Oozling and remove something and like not be super far behind. So the other two cards I was gonna say that I was playing was I had a Spellbreaker which was an absolute all-star, and I silenced many a Twilight Drake and then traded a Firefly into it, which felt amazing. And then I was playing a Ooze, and I killed many 2 durability Vine Cleavers, and won me many games that way. So yeah, I recommend those 2 tech cards for the deck. Other than that, yeah, that was my long explanation of my ladder week.
Man, blowing up Vine Cleavers just feels so amazing. Because the amount
it's
of
so good.
the amount of value you just take off the board immediately is unbelievable.
And if you don't kill it, you usually just die.
Yes, immediately.
Not dying is fantastic. Getting value from it is even better. And then if you get like armor from it on top of everything else, it's just like value-gasm.
Yeah, there's a
Also-
lot going on there.
Botticus, you have started something in all of my team discords. I am now Rebobson.
Oh boy.
I had some other good ones too, but I don't know. They might have just been funny to me.
It's I work them in later in the show. See what happens.
Yeah,
Let's see what
we'll
happens.
try to fit them in.
Yes, but Midgame. Tell me about your ladder
Yeah.
experience. Because I know you're also a
I've
fan of
also been
Hunter.
playing Hunter, but I've been making use of Deathstalker Rexar in non-recruit big Hunter because I don't think I explained this last time. My name comes from Midrange Hunter, and it's good again, and I can play Savannah High main, and oh boy, I'm gonna be playing some Savannah High mains. I've been playing Phenom's List, which is just one of the most beautiful things in the world. When you manage to, on turn 4, unleash the hounds with a scavenging hyena, thanks to the coin, against Odd Paladin. Oh boy! Oh, it feels so good. And yeah, just so good. I love Midrange Hunter. I'm so glad it's back. But I also have exams at the moment, so my playtime has been limited to usually playing it at work, where I have to concede so many games because a customer walks in. inconsiderate people. And that means that I'm just at the top of rank 4. I had a couple of people from the Discord watching me last night as I went on the most almighty 8-game win streak or something, and then proceeded to lose 4 in a row. So it was good. But yeah,
Man.
it's a good deck.
So I was playing against a mid-range hunter the other day who played the untargetable 4/3
Bear Shark.
and bear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bear
so
Shark.
they played a bear shark, and I had flanking strike in hand, and then they just didn't play any more creatures and kept hero powering me, and I just died. It was the worst.
You know what's even better than that? Houndmaster works on Bear Shark. So
Yeah.
you gotta know that a 6/5 Bear Shark is just something beautiful.
Well, see, that would have been good if they would have Houndmastered it, because I could have killed the Houndmaster with the flanking strike, but they just hero powered me until I was about to die, and then they Houndmastered because I was gonna die, and it didn't matter, and I was sad.
Level plays. Just don't play anything.
Yes, just get hit in the face by the bear shark until you die, and then play your next ladder game. It's currently the best strategy. Though this list is spicy. I looked it
Yeah, I
up while you
know.
were talking,
So
like double wing blast, Houndmaster Shaw. I mean, it didn't take long for us to figure out that card was
quite
good.
honestly, Wing Blast is so good. The last time I was on, I was reviewing Wing Blast, and I was like, this card seems really good. It's so good. It feels so good to be able to turn 4, unleash the hounds, and then deal 4 damage to a minion. It's an excellent card, and in that list, it is just an all-star.
Wing Blast is ridiculously powerful. I just draft. I've been playing more arena with the Taverns of Time thing, and I got an arena deck which has 3 Wing Blasts and 2 Chrono Shots.
No. Freezing Sap. We're calling it Freezing Sap.
Freezing Sap. Yes, I've got 2 Freezing Saps as well as 3 Wing Blasts. So I'm just going to tempo the hell out of you and win. And I'm on 7-1 at the moment. I need to finish that run, and it's going to be an easy 12. I feel it. I feel it in my bones.
Yeah, the new event, I mean, some of these cards, you just play them, you're like, well, this could never exist. And some of them you're playing like, this could almost exist. But
a lot of them could definitely never, ever exist.
No.
They're insane.
The card that I think I've seen the most of on Trollden videos is the Mage 2-drop Cavern Dreamer, where it's the 2-mana 1/3 that at the end of every turn it primordial glyphs a random spell to your hand, it generates a random spell and then makes it cost 2 less. And it just does that every turn, and it's a 2-drop. Every single time I've seen that card, it's been completely unfair.
I think another really good one that I got I think it was a 9-win run off. I had 3 of them. The 4/3 that draws the top card of your opponent's deck is shockingly good.
Really?
Because it just does so many things at once. Card draw is already pretty crazy broken in Arena. A 4/3 is reasonable, but then the amount of times that it would just give me that little bit of information and I could play around it, or I'd get something that was really good. I was playing Rogue, and I got the Mage 2-drop minion and played it, and it was just getting backstabs and abysses and everything. It's been so good. I adore that card.
Man.
Beautiful.
Speaking of Rogue, hey, Rebobson.
Yes?
Tell us about your ladder experience.
I am a huge Miracle Rogue fanboy. I first really got into the deck when Ngoro came out, which is also kind of around the point where I started really kind of trying to get much better at the game. Sherazin Corpse Flower was absolute bae for the longest while, and it makes me very sad that it's completely unplayable now because of the way the ladder meta is, but that's another thing. So at the moment, I'm just playing a whole metric something ton of Miracle Rogue. I couldn't think of a good non-swear, so
Dung ton.
just bleep it out and pretend that I sweared.
Okay. Yes. We are so PG, we have to make up profanity.
That is the way the world is. Yeah, so I've been I've actually been playing the Miracle Rogue, which does not run Gadgets and Auctioneer. It runs Sprint instead, which feels kind of weird. Like it's almost like it plays exactly the same as Miracle Rogue does because it's still got kind of 26 of the same cards, 28. But it just kind of feels very different at the same time because you've got a much more consistent draw engine, but also not like you have some flexibility in terms of like prep sprint is just absolutely bonkers, especially when you have like 8 or 12 spiders in your deck. Going prep sprint, summoning 5 spiders is always an incredible feeling, but then you don't get to do the kind of play a tempo Gadgets and watch your opponent freak the hell out because they can't do 4 damage. So there's ups and downs to it, but I think it's kind of like I tried this after watching Zalay's most recent video about his like 5 decks to hit legend with, and he was talking about it, and I listened to his reasoning, and it does make a lot of sense. The fact that Gadgetzan kind of makes you hold on to your kind of spell resources like prep until like later on in the game when really you want to be using those proactively for tempo to like prep, eviscerate something on the board, kill their stuff, get your own stuff on the board, and then kind of snowball out of control. And also the fact that it means you can cut Shiv, which is a terrible, terrible card. I hate Shiv. And
okay. I was gonna ask, are you a Shadow Step, a Hallucination, or apparently you're not a Shiv Miracle Rogue player, so
I don't think anyone is actually a Shiv Miracle Rogue player. But you run it because you have to, because you need that spell to draw the card.
I also play Thalnos. So
I run Thalnos as well.
okay.
I replaced the 2 Shivs with Shadow Step and Thalnos. I think Shadow Step is insane in Miracle Rogue, and I don't know why you wouldn't play it, because 3-mana Leroys are great. I love playing 3-mana Leroys or 2-mana Spider-Man.
Why are we not calling it 3 Roy?
Because I disapprove of everything you've ever said, Hat.
That's a good reason. Okay. I'm going to write that down.
Okay. So because I'm basically playing the standard list, but I cut a Elven Minstrel for Thalnos, and I'm playing double Shiv, so that so basically it's like if you don't have coin, you need Thalnos because second Minstrel feels terrible when you don't have coin. Like
yeah, but I think like from my experiences with the sprint version, you definitely need 2 minstrels because your card engine is a bit more limited in terms of what it can do. So you need kind of the more tailored cycle just to make sure that you're going to draw sprint at some point. Because if you don't draw sprint, you're pretty boned a lot of the time.
Right.
But I've been playing just pretty much that, as well as Hoy's Odd Paladin on ladder, just kind of going back and forth in them. And I'm up to rank 2-ish, because I haven't really been playing that much ladder this season. On my EU account, I still haven't got my ranked chest yet. That's how much I've been playing on there. I've played 2 games. And I've also kind of been playing more arena because it feels like it's a lot more fun at the moment. Like ladder's great at the moment, but arena just feels like monumentally silly, and I like silliness.
Whenever they do these kind of one-off arena events, they're so brief, and it can feel almost tavern brawly. Every so often, like I think the one they hit it exactly right in the middle was the 2-class arena. That should have just been a new game mode. That should have just been something you can do whenever you want, because I might play that more than standard ladder. Right now,
I agree. Yeah.
I adored the 2-class arena. That was so much fun. I played. I think while that was on, I played pretty much like 80% that, 20% standard ladder.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people did that. It had strategy, it had depth, it had variance, and it was super fun and interesting. So every so often they get something like that. This event definitely feels more like the Tavern Brawl Arena. And, that can be fun for a little bit. And you have these cool, crazy cards like Infinite Wolf and
Oh God, Infinite Murloc.
Yeah, Infinite Murloc, Cavern Dreamer, all these like really cool cards. And it's interesting and it's different. So definitely, while the opportunity is there, it's a fun way to experience a new version of Hearthstone, especially with how much normal ladder we're used to playing.
Infinite Murloc seems infinitely worse than Infinite Wolf.
Yes. I played against someone who got Infinite Murloc up to 7/7s, but I was playing my ridiculous hunter deck, so I just killed them.
Yeah.
Infinite Murloc doesn't do very much when you're dead. Can confirm.
That's
Hunter
actually a
Hero
known
card's pretty
limitation
good.
of most cards, is that they don't do anything if you're dead.
Yeah, but Infinite Murloc doesn't do anything to really stop you from being dead either, is the main problem with it. Infinite Wolf does.
That's fair.
Yeah.
The only card I think that does something when you're dead is Ice Block, because it turns out you're not really dead. Anyways, it's gone now. Can't hurt us anymore.
Not
It's
in
fine.
Arena. You can get it with the Hall of Fame card.
Yes. Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
That's true.
Oh no.
There is also a game mode called Wild. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I am familiar with Wild. I haven't seen a lot of Ice Blocks. I've seen a lot more Reno Jacksons, which instead of making you not dead when you're dead, is just make you not dead, period.
Never die.
Yes.
Good card.
It's all right. But anyways, so for me here, just want to talk briefly about my ladder experience. It's been mostly Golf Story, because I went on a little vacation this week, and I brought my Switch, and Golf Story is a fantastic game, so if you have a Switch, you should get it. But on ladder, I was still playing some of that goofy combo priest I was talking about last week, which the decklist should be on my Twitter, and tweet at me, and I'll put it out there with the Dragon Souls and the Vivid Nightmares. And then I tried Casey's Dragon or combo priest with actual dragons, with Dustbreakers and Twilight Drakes and Nightscale Matriarchs, which is, if you don't know what that card is, that's the 7 mana 4/9. Whenever you heal a friendly minion, you get a 3/3 dragon. And it again, 9 is the butt size. It's a 4/9. So very good as a dragon enabler. Very good when you pair it with Circle of Healing and a couple of damage minions.
Why wasn't there the bumper that it had? You're disappointing me.
Okay, because
It
then
was the perfect time.
it's always a perfect time for big butts.
True.
Hey.
Here it goes. That's for you, mid-game. There. That was there.
Oh.
So anyways,
Thank you.
it's just for you. So, but then the Vicious Syndicate Data Reaper report came out last week, and there were a lot more Cube Warlocks, which isn't a great matchup if they get the right draw, and a lot more odd rogues to target the Warlocks, and that's a pretty bad matchup. And it didn't feel like I had quite the same edge against the field that I did the first week I was playing it. So I switched a little bit to Odd Rogue to Raphael's list, which includes the incredibly underrated King Mukla, who is super duper good in this meta, and it includes none of Tar Creeper, which is super overrated in a deck that's trying to kill the opponent as quickly as possible. So, no Tar Creeper. Yes, Mukla. It also includes Emerald Reaver, the 1 mana 2/1 neutral card that deals 1 damage to both players when you play it.
God.
It's like a little upper gnome. Like a little upper gnome.
This deck is honestly so good.
Yeah.
I gave it a few games after you posted it, and it's straight fire.
Did you ever draw Face Collector? Because Face Collector's been real good for me.
Yes. I did a 3-face collector and got 3 Leroys.
Oh. There's no way
What?
you can be serious.
Oh. Oh.
I don't feel so good.
You win.
Ugh.
Everyone go home now.
man.
Okay, that's gross. And then I saw Stan Sifka's #1 even Warlock list, and I decided I wanted to try it out, and it's really good. And then it just feels like Big Zoo with a couple removal spells, because all you're doing is like you hit the button about 3 times, right? You tap about 3 times, and then you just play giant things until somebody dies. And
Yes.
I've enjoyed that style, and it's worked out surprisingly well, because when you just keep making 4 10s and 8 8s and 7 7s, your opponent dies. And so I've just been doing that for a little bit. So I'm mid of rank 1. I expect to hit Legend this week, but we'll see what happens. And that is our hour-long intro, as we are known to do. Well, we've got so many people to talk about, but we also have a good amount of news to talk about. So let's talk about the news.
All right, so first up on the news, we had the top Hearthstone players for May 2018 came out. All I was able to check was the NA region, but I want to give a shout out to Papa Jason for finishing rank 119 in standard, and then over on the wild side we had Woodford finishing at rank 54, Levity, one of the guys over that listens to Blister Guys podcast, Walk to Work, finished at 91. I know he was super excited about that. Blister Guy himself finished at 103, and our one and only KCCO gamer Kenny finished at 185 in Wild. So pretty awesome. Hopefully, if you finished really high on the ladder and I missed you, I'm sorry, but you should message me and I'll make sure to get you in on the next month. The next little article we had here was an article titled "So You Want to Go Pro," and it's by a player named Theo, and he goes over a few different things you should be looking at for kind of first time people that are just getting into the competitive scene. The first thing he goes over is online tournaments. This is mainly the like Challenger Cups and just free tournaments like that are really good for dipping your toe in to the more competitive scene. And then he also talks about offline tournaments like Fireside Gatherings and Tavern Hero qualifiers, which is a good way to try to qualify for the Challenger Finals. And then he talks a little bit about preparation and learning from your mistakes. So if you want kind of a cool article that Play Hearthstone's putting out there, definitely go check this out. Definitely kind of goes along with our tagline for our show. So wanted to put a little note in here for that. The next article from the Play Hearthstone website was an off-meta spotlight that included a Wind Fury Even Shaman deck, which is kind of cool, that also ran 2 copies of Mad Hatter.
Yay!
It's your card, Hat. Are you going to try this deck? Oh, this plays 2 cryostasis? What?
I don't know if I'm that crazy, because it seems there's like off meta and then there's like off meta, and I feel like we've maybe gone a little too deep into these woods.
Yeah, so
this is like me for a while trying to make Control Hunter work. It's not a good idea. Don't do it. Too far off meta.
So just so you know, I did this yesterday, and you can attack with your minion and then cryostasis it and then give it Wind Fury, so it would have gotten the second attack and then it unfreezes because it just counts its ability. As soon as it like essentially quote unquote eats up one of its attacks, it can actually attack again the next turn. Like you don't like freeze
so
it.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So just something to keep in mind if you're looking to play this deck. The other one on here is a Kingsbane Rogue deck, # not a mill deck. This one's actually not Blister Guy, in case you're listening. And yeah, I actually started seeing this a bunch on ladder, which I thought was really weird, and I was losing to it, so it was somewhat aggravating. But I've seen a couple people playing this. I know that Dog was playing this quite a bit. It seems it still seems pretty powerful. I don't know. Have any of you guys seen this deck on ladder? Some Kingsbane Rogue?
Yes.
I played a little bit, and I don't know. By a little bit, I mean like 5 games, and I didn't really enjoy it. I have got utterly destroyed by one though, so I don't know. 2 ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it feels like, as with a lot of the decks in the meta right now, it's like busted draws are really busted, and you have a really it's hard to keep up unless your deck just happens to line up really well against it. And then the last one on here is an Elemental Mage, and this is not like your typical like Kibler Elemental Mage where he's like Book of Specters and stuff. I don't even know if that would be considered typical, but this is like, it looks like a tempo mage, but it still tops out at Frostlich Jaina. So it basically cuts like some of the early game. I guess some of your like Cinder Storms and Arcane Missiles for a bit more of a top end with Frostlich Jaina. I guess it has Meteor in it, but I guess you kind of like throw people off with like starting with Mana Worm and then Arcanologist, and you think you're playing against an aggro mage deck, and then they turn into Frostlich Jaina later in the game and crush you under a bunch of value. So one of the interesting notes about this, I don't know if any of you have anything to say about this, but they removed the deck creators from all of these decks. They used to post the deck creators, but I guess there was a bit of a hoopla about one time they posted it with the wrong creator and people kind of got up in arms about it. So I'm kind of interested what your guys' thoughts are on having them have the deck creator listed in the article.
The witch.
I think that there's not a problem if they get, someone who is playing it who is not necessarily right. If they're, I don't know. I didn't see the problem last time. I thought everyone was making a big deal out of nothing, and I feel like not having one there is bad. That's what I feel. I would kind of like someone getting credit for it, especially if, maybe they didn't necessarily be the first person to play it, but it's fairly common for someone to kind of come up with at least a similar deck to someone else. I don't know. I feel like people should get credit, and I feel like this is just what happens when you get outraged over nothing. Thanks, Fred.
Yeah. I mean, there's it's like kind of hard to quantify what actually constitutes making a deck your own, because it could just be changing one card. Because like when you're talking about like archetypes that have been fixed in place for a while, it's like, well, I changed this one card and I think I've improved the win rate by like 0.5%. And that's kind of, it's making the deck your own, but it's still kind of like not, like you could still argue that it's still basically someone else's version of the deck. Yeah, I kind of agree with Midgame. Like, somebody should probably get credit if they've like created something new. But it's kind of a gray area as to what constitutes new in a lot of things. But giving someone credit seems fair rather than just giving nobody credit. Or they could just say, these are the deck's creators, just so they don't get it wrong. They just include like the several people who've like contributed to the deck's evolution, and that would be probably better.
It's hard for me to really understand the mentality, because I know a lot of deck builders, people that see themselves as ones who build, like, I am a deck builder. I'm not necessarily like trying to get, high ranks with it, but I am putting this deck out there for people to make. Like, I don't identify with that as much, so I could see how somebody could get like, really wants the credit for putting all this work into the deck, but at the same time, like, I don't know, it's just a awkward place. I think it's hard for them, because like obviously Hearthstone doesn't want a ton of blowback every time they get a deck creator wrong, right?
But it does kind of suck for like people who are like deck creators, because like, I mean, if like your deck was shared by like the Play Hearthstone thing, and like you're not getting credited because of this, like that would be like a lot of publicity for someone who creates decks, and like publicity in esports is, quite good. That would get you like a whole ton of exposure, followers, etc. And like to kind of miss out on that because of like Reddit essentially would probably suck.
And Matt at Arms makes a good point in chat that I kind of saw or thought about is just that when they were posting the deck with a name on it, they weren't necessarily saying this was the person who originated the deck. They were saying that this is the person that played the deck and had a really good win rate with it, and you could have a good win rate too, like this person. Like, I don't see a problem with that, but it happened to be that one specifically that everybody was like, he didn't make the deck, this person made the deck. So, yeah, whatever.
Well, I mean, so why does Blizzard make these? We have to kind of think, what is the purpose of Blizzard posting these off-meta spotlights? And I think it's to kind of illustrate that, really, it's a PR purpose for them, to illustrate that the meta is unsolved, right? They get an advantage here if they paint a picture of the meta being healthier and more interesting than it may seem at top rungs of the ladder, or even in the rank 5 to Legend Climb, where people are most likely going to go to Vicious Syndicate or HS Replay, take the highest win rate deck they can find that they, period, unless it's in a specific class they want to play or have cards for, and then they're just going to rock that. This provides a useful service of giving other options and showing that other options can exist. But it's a PR move for Blizzard, and their job is to do that with as little effort as possible, with as much reward as possible, right? They want that ratio of time put in and value gotten out to be as high in the value and low in the time as possible. So what they did is very clear. They went to their own Magic Blizzard internal business intelligence tools. They looked at players that were winning with cards that had a low frequency rate on the ladder. They pulled the deck list from the game. They took the player's name and they slapped it on a page. They did it 3 times and they published an article. Right? Straightforward, and they do no Twitter research because they don't have to. They make the game. They just go in the game and get what's winning that isn't frequently being played. As soon as you get to the point of needing to do Twitter research to figure out who really designed the deck, you create a really weird value proposition that doesn't hold up under the amount of time they need to put in for that last detail. And when you combine with that, the negative reaction they got, if they don't list any names, nobody gets false credit. If they do list names, sometimes someone gets false credit. In particular, one time it happened that we know of. So, they can have the same result by just leaving people's names off and never get yelled at, or they can put a name on there and roll the dice. We, as a community, and not saying everybody, definitely not saying everybody, but we as a community, by reacting, trained Blizzard not to do a nice thing. Because sometimes a nice thing can go wrong, and there's a big culture of hot take culture of correcting, right? Of just saying you're wrong because you don't know. And Blizzard was aware they didn't know because they just went in the game and pulled a player's deck list. So it's fine. I don't think they need to put a player's name on there. I think it was probably a net positive, even with the negative feedback, to list the wrong player's name, or not wrong player, the player. But that player might not always direct people to the person that actually made the deck. I don't know. I understand why Blizzard took the names off. I wish they didn't have to, but they probably did have to.
I would just like to say that I blame Hat.
That does seem like a fair analysis. I was actually the first person to tweet at them that they had the wrong name because, well, actually. And then I made all the other Twitter accounts that were also upset, specifically to give us something to talk about this week.
Yep, sounds like something.
We already have a ton to talk about this week, so let's keep going. Taverns of Time, which is all of the new arena cards in the arena, is live. I don't know if you guys want to talk more about it. Hearthstone Top Decks put out a arena class tier list in case you don't have a ton of time to figure everything out on your own and just want to be given some good information about what you should be, what class you should be picking, and kind of gives you an idea what cards are good. I tried to do a couple arena runs, but I found that I am not an arena player. I would have to put in a lot of time to get better at that, and just not willing to. So, do you guys have anything to say about the arena? Have you guys been doing a bunch of it? A little bit.
I had an extra free run with the free run that they gave you because I had an arena run in progress. I did one that got to 9 wins. I did one that got to 4. Seems fine. I'm not going back in. I'm just going to play ladder with the limited time I've got.
Yeah, I've been playing it more, and my first run was disastrous. I got 1 win, and like that's the worst arena run I've pretty much ever had. So that was fun. But then I drafted this very silly hunter deck. Then I'm up to 7, and yeah, it seems like with the new cards in place, there's a lot more variance in terms of how powerful your deck can be or cannot be, and it mostly comes down to how often you get offered these new cards. Because like with the bucket system, I think they've kind of put all the new cards in a bucket which is kind of at a lower one than it should be. So if you get offered the new cards, more often than not, you should just take them because they're always more powerful than what you should be offered. And then if you just have a deck which is kind of all these arena-only cards, you're going to do quite well, especially if it's Chrono Shot. Freezing Sap, sorry.
Thank you.
That card is broken as hell.
Well, so this is going to be around for 3 weeks. I'll be interested to hear people that continue to play this, because I won't be. But if they change the buckets over the course, if some of the cards start getting moved into to different buckets as they kind of their power level is fully discovered. Hat, did you get a chance to do any arena yet, or are you planning on doing a bunch? What's your opinion on the Taverns of Time?
I think I'm 3-1 in my run right now, and I have really enjoyed it because it feels fresh and interesting and just a little overpowered. I think just a little overpowered is usually the way you want to go, especially when it seems like kind of a unilateral armament that everybody kind of got a weapon here. I've enjoyed it, and the advice I got from Schwal for my second run, he's a regular in our Discord as well as the Velens one in Walk to Work. He recommends that when you do an arena run, if you want to win, ignore most of the new cards and just take a solid deck and mostly take 2, 3s, and 4s.
And Freezing Sap.
Yeah, well, that card's good, but you have to have the tempo deck built around it, because if you have that card and then a bunch of 6-drops, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
But it does have the advantage of being in Hunter, where generally you're not kind of... In Hunter, you have one kind of deck that you can draft. It's an aggressive tempo deck. That's a Hunter deck. That's what Hunter does. You're going to try and kill your opponent and steal tempo. And giving Hunter a tempo card, like Freezing Zap, is just mental, because it's just what, like, the reason they don't give Hunter cards like that in Standard is because it would be so incredibly good to give Hunter like a good proactive tempo card. Because it's just so good for hitting people in the face and pressing the button so they die.
Turns out hitting people in the face and having them die is a general good strategy to have. The next little piece of news here is Tess has been officially reverted.
Yes.
Everybody can rejoice. Their complaints were heard and were done, or something was done about it. So now Tess will function as it was said that it was supposed to function originally. So, yay! I know we had a big old long discussion in Discord about quote unquote nerfs to Tess and dust refunds that I don't think we need to bring up on this already going long podcast. But if you haven't, you could go hear us talk about that a bunch, but don't have to worry about it anymore because Tess is back to how she was.
We've also, again, trained Blizzard with our behavior, I think, to a more positive outcome this time, that materially changing a card's functionality needs to be met with it should be expected to be met with either compensation from Blizzard or a loss of trust, at least in some level, from the community. I think that anytime they change a card's functionality to this level, they are almost certainly playing with fire if they don't give something with it, because they've stated multiple times the philosophy is to make the cards feel like a physical thing that you have, and by making these changes, it's not about the compensation, it's about Blizzard is altering how a card functions, and it makes the digital object feel less real, and that can be a really dangerous thing for a digital card game, because you just lose faith from the players if you change cards too often, especially without warning or compensation, and that can be just really hard to recover from. So I'm glad they did something about it. I think I would have preferred the dust refund, honestly, because I did like the consistency of all those cards working the same way, but I get this change as well.
Yeah, overall, I think positive. But I think I agree with you that I think they could have just reverted it with whatever. Either way, today is Gold Pack Day, so all of you who are listening to the podcast, you are too late unless you were logging in that day. You should have logged in today when we're recording this on Wednesday the 13th, because you would have got a free pack with golden cards in it. So anybody get anything cool in their golden pack? I got it on all 3 servers and they all sucked.
My last one, which was the one from Twitch Prime, I got King Crush in. This one, I haven't done EU yet, but both Asia and NA have been very disappointing.
You might be too late on EU now. It's probably already reset the next day, right? Unless you have more than, I assume you only had 24 hours, right? Because
I'd never play on EU anyway, so
let's see.
My pack was also, all my packs were resoundingly disappointing. I got a golden Murloc War Leader on EU, but that was
a sweet
it.
One.
Yeah,
that's a sweet one.
I don't keep golden cards anyway, so whatever it was going to be, unless it was a pretty sweet legendary, it was going to be dust.
Yeah, same.
I get a mind control tech.
What'd you get, Hat?
Mind control tech and dust.
Yes.
Yeah, I forget what else, but MCT is like good again, so that's cool.
Spiteful Druid time. Yay.
Yeah.
Shudderwalk Shaman.
Yeah.
That too.
Okay, couple more things here. There was an article about why Hearthstone needs a dedicated tournament server. I did not get a chance to really read through this, but kind of goes into a couple tweets about people talking about why. It goes into like a bit of the drama that we'll get into in the tournament section, and just, why we should not be playing tournaments on a live server. So it's probably a good read if you want to check it out. It's on Hearthstone Top Decks. We have a link in the show notes. Last 2 items here. HCT Tokyo and Oakland were announced. It was kind of weird that Oakland was announced because it's coming up in like a month. So I signed up right away because I'm relatively close. And so if you're going to Oakland, make sure you let me know. I want to meet everybody, all the listeners. If you're going to be there, should be a lot of fun. I don't think I'm going to be able to make Tokyo. It's kind of far.
Oh.
And then the last thing here, HCT Summer Champ tickets are available. So you can go to the link in our show notes. You can meet the players. They have a article about who's all going. And yeah, is anybody going to be able to make this? I'm probably not going to go to this, even though it's really, even though it's really close to me. It's just,
it's quite far away from me, unfortunately.
It's also on the 28th, so it's really close to reset. So probably we'll be just laddering instead at home where it's comfortable.
On a comfortable mattress.
Yep.
No, I'll be overseas in Malaysia then.
Ooh.
Somehow
Spicy.
I am the second closest person to this event on the podcast. But still 3 time zones away. So no, I will not be there. I wish, but I will not be there. But this looks super cool. If this was in my backyard, I would go to every single one. I would absolutely be there. Live Hearthstone's amazing. And this meta, even pre-nerf, really bred some super skill-intensive games where you could see the difference between the pros and the non-pros with how they executed. And post-nerf, I think there are even more interesting games to be seen. Actually, we're not going to get a better segue than this. Why don't we talk about it in the tournament section?
It's the grand tournament.
I was waiting to see if Rebobson was going to do the kazoo.
It gets me every time.
It's you just kind of wait and you're like, I know it's coming. I know it's there. And then there's a kazoo. So let's talk about
Sounds lucky.
HCT Seoul. HCT Seoul. Interesting tournament. Very interesting. This took place this past weekend. Hunterace, who is the best player to have never won an HCT, in my humble opinion, won an HCT. And he beat Samuel Sao in the finals, both of whom are known consistent tournament finishers. Steelo and Just Saying, third and fourth. Go ahead.
That final was so good. I
Yeah.
have watched it about 3 times and see something different every time. It is such a good series.
Oh, yeah. There were a lot of really great series this entire tournament, but I agree. The finals was really impressive to watch, and you could kind of tell it was Hunterace's tournament to win, but Samuel Sao played really well, too. The only point at which he quote-unquote misplayed is what he gave his opponent off Wandering Monster, and that was, again, not entirely within his control. So, we had Kin 0531, Katsukuri, Gyu, and Sehun finishing out the top 8. But before we get there, there were a couple concerns with this tournament. Rebobson, why don't you brief us on some of the concerns with this tournament? Give us the high level.
Yeah. So I kind of was following this tournament more because it was a train wreck than for the Hearthstone. Because being British, we're very cynical people, and we kind of enjoy watching things screw up because we're very sadistic in that sense. So this tournament really appealed to me on that level. So like the tournament got off to a really bad start, like just after kind of announcement before anything else happened. This was I think the first tour stop in the APAC region which did not provide super accounts for global players to play on who didn't already have one. Obviously a lot of pros will play on the Asia server as well, but some people, Hunterace being a notable one among them, didn't have Asia accounts, so they had to kind of shell out like a few $100s just to play in this tournament, as well as obviously travel and everything else. So that was kind of the first warning sign for the tournament that maybe something was amiss. Then obviously the week before the tournament, the patch went live, and well, the patch went live in between deck submissions for the tournament, which were uncharacteristically early, like a week ahead of time, and the tournament itself happening. So there was obviously some level of miscommunication between the organizers requiring decks that early there and Blizzard. And like miscommunication between the organizers and Blizzard was kind of a recurring theme from the tournament. So the patch went live. The most notable thing from the patch was the fact that the quest for the quest druid was nerfed with the change to how Faces Manipulator interacts, and several players did bring quest druid. Then the original response from the tournament organizers was, sorry, you're just going to have to play with quest druid with a useless card in it. But then they put out that response saying that they had been in touch with Blizzard saying this. Then Blizzard themselves later ratified, no, actually, players who brought quest druid can change this deck, which kind of meant that players who brought quest druid were allowed to just change it to whatever they wanted. This after deck submission deadlines had happened, people had tweeted their lineups, etc. So they went from having a uncharacteristic disadvantage to an uncharacteristic advantage. So that this was all pre-tournament. Those are all kind of stuff that happens. Whatever, it's cool. Then the real big kind of warning sign happened once they released the schedule for the actual event. So let me ask you guys, what do you think is a good amount of time for a round of Swiss?
2 hours.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you there. The tournament organizers didn't. They scheduled 1 hour per round of Swiss on the first day of the tournament. So obviously that was incredibly unrealistic, and it meant that day one, it overran by something amounting to 6 hours, because they split all the players up into different groups by region. So it was like Asia Pacific players had 2 groups, local South Korea players were in one group, and then everyone else was in another group. And they staggered the start times of the different groups who were all playing their own Swiss rounds. So it meant that the players who were in the first 2 groups to start got like just a nice normal day. Because they overran, but because they were scheduled to finish at like 7 p.m. anyway, it meant that they were still done by like a good time to get out and go home and rest, etc. But the players from the other groups finished at, well, the global players finished at 1 a.m. and the Asia Pacific 2 group, which I'll talk about a bit more later, they got out at, I think, past 2 a.m. and they still hadn't finished. They still had 3 rounds of Swiss to go. So they had to come in early the next day to play those 3 rounds, which meant that everyone else got to come in later, got some extra rest, etc., etc. That's probably not particularly fair on the Asia Pacific 2 players. And it also meant, because the schedule overran so dramatically, they'd scheduled kind of camera crews, the production team, etc., to appear to be there for only the certain times that they had allocated. And it meant that on day 1 and then consequently on day 2, they didn't get to stream the latest matches of the day, which, especially on day 2, once you get into the knockout stages, meant that some of the round of 16 matches were not streamed. And generally in a big tournament like this, you do kind of want to see the most important knockout matches happen. So that was another organizational misstep. I was kind of like just tweeting about this as it happened because I found it hilarious, but it's also kind of not funny if you are one of the pros affected. And there were a lot of complaints from players as the tournament happened about kind of other smaller incidental issues. Like Zixo tweeted that the tournament didn't actually provide noise cancelling headphones, so it was very distracting for players who were playing on stream in particular. Like admins shouting, they could like hear all the background noise. So another bit of, what do you say, confusion from the organizers, I'll go with.
Crap.
Just to be nice.
Crap is the word. That's the word you're looking for.
Yes, let's go with that one instead. That's much better. Then there were kind of, I think it was someone caught on stream, like a tournament admin just kind of like shoving past the player who was on stream. Like there were a lot of instances where kind of the players on stream were like they seemed kind of distracted or confused. So there was a bit of like unprofessionalism there as well. Then, but going back to the thing about the scheduling issue, like the thing I was looking up this for around the heart the other day because I was like thinking about how I was looking up like I realized that I hadn't seen how the Asia Pacific 2 players had done in the knockout rounds up once they started playing against all the other players from the different groups who had like significantly better rest times, etc. And Asia Pacific 2 players played 10 games in the round of 16. They lost 8, and none of the Asia Pacific 2 players progressed into the next round of the tournament. So top 8 was completely from the other 3 groups. And I don't think that's really a coincidence that those players were at a huge disadvantage and they didn't perform so well because of that. And like that raises, I think, a lot of issues about competitive integrity and the fact that these players were put at such a huge disadvantage through things out of their control. So Blizzard probably needs to do a bit more to kind of standardize how tour stops are run and organized, because this one was pretty bad in that front. Did you guys follow what was happening? Or
I followed you. That's why you're on. Well, also you won Listener League. That's also why you're on. But you covered it about as well as you could expect anybody to cover it. So thank you for putting this all together, because our show notes are just your tweets.
Yeah, no, this is just what I know from following it, because I'm, like I said, I like watching things screw up in real time.
Well, and players' livelihood is depending on this. This is
Right.
meant to be a job for them, and this is about as unprofessional as you can expect an event to run. The game of the week last week, Zalay versus Amnesiac in the Token Druid Mirror, that game was 54 minutes. That single game.
Yes.
So that meant that after that game, they'd have to fit in up to 4 more in 6 minutes. It's
Totally doable.
I had people doing 2 sets in a whole week, and they couldn't manage that in the Lister League. So, I mean, what hope has anyone got?
Yeah, I mean, in United Hearthstone League, in UHL, where just to schedule a match for casting, we said minimum 90-minute block. So,
And that's for one game.
Yeah.
Or one match,
Yes.
not multiple matches. I'm actually looking at, I wanted to check this, and I'm actually worried about HCT Oakland, because they're saying Swiss rounds 1 through 6, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they added an extra hour for...
Oh, the hour did include a 10-minute break in between rounds, so maybe that's where the extra hour's coming from with 6 rounds. So yeah, that's just an extra hour.
So I am worried that it's probably going to be much later, but at least 11 to 6, if each round stretches out an extra 30 minutes, it's an extra 3 hours, still done by 9 p.m. And like,
Yeah.
It's late, but it's not unreasonable.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with the first 2 groups, because they started so much earlier than the other 2. They finished much later than they were scheduled to, but finishing much later than you're scheduled to when you finish at 10 or 11 p.m. is very different to finishing much later than you were scheduled to when the schedule said that you were supposed to finish at midnight anyway. Because like they gave themselves no wiggle room whatsoever with the way they scheduled it. So it was like, well, if this overruns, we're screwed. And that seems very unprofessional to not kind of have a worst case scenario planned out. Like I can't think of any form of event planning, like not just Hearthstone, like anything which doesn't kind of account for unforeseen circumstances, like the fact you got your schedule horribly, horribly wrong. That could be a foreseen circumstance, but apparently not.
well, and
Do we know if
there's
there's
a bunch
a
of
reason why they
complications.
ran all of the groups like separately, and why they did, like, was it so they could stream more matches, or why couldn't they
Well,
just run them similar times?
I've not actually encountered like any kind of official thing from the organizers regarding like pre, during, or after. I'm not sure if that's just because it was organized by, I think, a Korean TV station, so it might just be that everything that they kind of do publicly is in Korean. So obviously I would miss that. My Korean's pretty bad, but like didn't see anything from like the official Play Hearthstone account regarding some of the issues that came up. So like so far there's just been radio silence. So that's a bit concerning.
I feel confident saying that there's got to be someone behind the scenes that's at least working to formalize this with the amount of visibility that was on this tournament in a lot of ways.
Yes.
It was, and honestly, the concerns were so reasonable and raised in a pretty nuanced fashion from the HCT pros. It was not particularly toxic or aggressive that I had found. It was just players concerned about their livelihood, and very
Yeah.
reasonable concerns at that. I'd be really surprised if this didn't make it any further in the company, and if there wasn't some kind of standard that gets set going forward, especially if HCT Oakland has similar issues. I imagine there will be some kind of formalization, just because with Overwatch League becoming so relevant, and with Fortnite and PUBG becoming so relevant as spectator sports and esports, the standard is elevated.
Absolutely. I'd certainly hope so, at least. But the main thing was the scheduling concern in particular was actually raised before the tournament start and was kind of not addressed by anybody. I think that's a little concerning as well. Like I think Boar Control was the one who tweeted about it, saying, "Really, an hour for Swiss," and that was just kind of not addressed. So,
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if once that kind of plan was in place, that it's pretty hard to move it, but it was going to get moved anyways. So I think I agree that the production company that put it on needed to like at least make a last minute adjustment after they made their plans, as opposed to making it and not making adjustment at all and letting the players do it for them.
Yeah,
I
mean, I don't agree with ever kind of making a plan as concrete as they seemed to do it. You always need to account for things outside your control. It doesn't seem like they had that in mind at any point, and that's a bit concerning.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the information on this. I am gonna dive into the meta a little bit here because we do have. You're gonna see a different deck selection because remember that DreamHack Austin was not able to influence this tournament except for the 15 players that brought Quest Druid and got to redo that one. But everybody else, their deck submission deadline was June 1st, and DreamHack Austin was June 2nd. So nobody got to look at the previous week's tournament and modify their lineups. Everything here is theory crafted from 2 weeks before. So Druid was definitely the most popular class. We had 4 Taunts, 3 Tokens, and Malygos. We had 4 Even Shamans and 2 Shutterwalks. It was actually the second most represented class in the top 8. Rogue was number 3, with 3 Miracles and 2 Odd Rogues. We only had 4 Warlocks. They were all cubes. 4 Paladins. They were all odd. 2 Warriors. They were both Taunt. A Control Priest, a Big Mage, and a secret mid-range Hunter. Midgame.deck. Yeah. The winning.
I was muted, but there was much excitement. Yeah,
Yes.
mid-range Hunter. Woo-hoo!
Yep. And
it won the whole tournament. Yeah.
yeah, it was the winning deck. That was Mally Druid, Secret Midrange Hunter, Odd Paladin, and Odd Rogue won the tournament. Very different from other lineups we've seen because Hunterace was well tuned into what he wanted to beat and played his lineup beautifully. Druid and Warlock were overall the most popular class in the tournament, followed by Rogue, but Warlock did not translate super well to the elimination rounds. Old Guardian, actually, if you haven't read his page, we shout him out, and he does weekly analyses of these tournaments in a really amazing way. The short version, the direct quote I'm going to give you from his article, and definitely go check it out, that looking at the popular archetypes' successive lineups that included them, Odd Paladin, Miracle Rogue, and Taunt Druid did well. Shutterwalk Shaman, Odd Rogue, Q-Block, and Taunt Warrior did okay. Big Spell Mage, Token Druid, Even Lock, and Mind Blast Priest were disappointments and did not perform as expected. So
Sounds about right.
yeah, it's a little surprising, but remember that the players were submitting 2-week-old decks, except for Hunterace, who somehow was in the future. And speaking of Hunterace, this was his tournament to win, but the game to watch I'm going to talk about is his Game 3, where he was playing Twig Mally Druid against Frozen's Shutterwalk Shaman. So Frozen and Hunterace were both playing combo decks with a lot of draw and not a lot going on in the early game. Frozen did what he had to do, in that he wanted to draw a lot of cards, but he also wanted to develop early minions and put pressure on his opponent. Chain Gangs, Acolyte, get Zola, get Life Drinker, play these cheap Battlecry minions that can both pressure and build up the combo because you have to play them. Not Acolyte, but it's really good to draw cards in a deck that needs to get a specific combination of cards to win. Now, Hunterace started off with Wild Growth into Nourish into Malfurion, but to deal with the Poisonous Spiders, Frozen intelligently said, why don't I just Volcano, wipe the board, and draw 3 cards? It worked out pretty well. Followed by Grumble on turn 8, and there was a lot of cards in hand. And so Hunterace sensed danger and said, I feel a Shutterwalk coming. He had a Twig of the World Tree on 1 durability, and he didn't have the Malygos yet, but he said, you know what I'm going to do? Play Lich King, attack with Twig, face with the Lich King, go face. Double Lich King, there was Blood Mage Solemnus on the board, and just start pushing spell damage. Push a swipe to the face and just get in there. And Frozen had to wait a turn to Hex one of the Lich Kings and Glacial Shard the other one, just to make sure they didn't die, even though he had the Shutterwalk in hand. And he had played Grumble, Zola, Grumble, Zola, Serenite Chain Gang, and Life Drinker. He had played the combo, but he had to take an extra turn. A Hex got baited, and then Hunterace like, how about I top deck Malygos? Boom! Play the 4/12. The only play Frozen had left was to just play the Shutterwalk, but Malygos just lived. It did not die. So, Death Coil, Death and Decay, and Swipe later, and the round was over. And Hunterace swept Frozen, the reigning world finalist, 3-0. Very impressive to watch. And this is he was able to beat a full combo Shutterwalk that started going off on turn 11. So, very impressive to watch.
That game was like, when I saw the Malygos Druid build, I was like my first thought was, why is Lich King in this deck? And then I watched that match and I was like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
because like just kind of because Lich King's just a really good card, and sometimes you need a plan B.
Yeah, or sometimes you accidentally find a new plan A. And you'll see that in actually a couple of other games on the latest Trollden video, 372, episode 372. There are 3 amazing high roll moments. One involves a yoink, one involves a burn, and one involves a turn that is truly bananas. I'm not going to spoil any of them for you, but go check out Trollden 372. There's Just Sayin versus Flurry Game 5, Just Sayin versus Scintillol Game 5, and then Hunterace versus Samuel Stow, the last game of the tournament, Game 5. Also amazing. Before
2 of them involve Just Saying.
Yes. Before we get any further, mid-game, I know you got to go in a minute. So did you happen to watch any of these games? I want to make sure that I pick your brain before you have to go off and sell some mattresses.
Yeah, or just sleep on them. I watched a lot of HCT Seoul because of what you shout out every week. The YouTube channel Hearthstone tournaments is just phenomenal. And quite often when I'm just lying down waiting for customers to come in, I'll just chuck on some match and watch it. Really enjoyed it. I thought there was some excellent play, especially the mid-range hunter play. Got big fan of that. Even though it's not the right version, he's running secrets and spellstones and all that nonsense. That's all right. I'll give him a pass because it's close enough.
Well, he didn't actually do that well with the deck. If he posted his deck list with his records, and it was by far his deck with the worst record,
He's running
but
secrets.
obviously still won. Like it performed well enough that he won, but his record was like 9-8 with it, and all of his other decks had like 1 or 2 losses. So
Yeah,
he's
like-
running secrets. That's the problem. Don't run secrets in your mid-range hunter, fam, and run some Savannah High mains. You'll be a lot happier. I promise.
Man, Savannah Highmane, that's a good card.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to play the only good hunter legendary, apart
Hey.
from Deathstalker Racer.
It's Houndmaster Shaw is a
now
good
we
card.
actually play them.
Houndmaster Shaw and Katharina are both seeing significant play. Hunter actually has legendary.
And King Crush.
King Crush
King Crush
has the best game that you get to play. It's can I attack with King Crush before they concede?
You know
I usually
what's
lose.
A better
that
game though.
but I win.
Turn 5
actual
coin
game.
high main.
Into turn 6 high main.
Yeah, it's the only legendary that you can play 2 of, and boy does it feel good when you play 2 of them.
Does Shutterwalk count? Because you can play a lot more than 2.
Oh. Oh.
It gets complicated, but I'm.
Shutterwalk ruining all my dreams again.
It's how often does that happen? Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, so
I mean,
Rebobson, how much HCT Seoul did you watch? What did you get to see? What stood out to you? Besides the logistics being bad.
Well, I caught kind of what I could. Asia Pacific events are pretty tricky for me to watch time zone wise because they start at like 3 a.m. my time, and I try and be asleep at those times, or at least thinking about sleeping rather than thinking about being awake for the next 7 hours watching Hearthstone. So I just kind of caught what I could. I got to catch most of the finals day, and then just like sporadic bits of the first 2 days. I just really like watching Hunterace play. That guy's insanely good.
He's so good at Hearthstone.
Yeah, he's definitely like the best player in the world, I think.
Yeah.
And I did kind of catch up on like, I saw the Trollden clips, and yeah, not going to spoil those. But then I just wanted to go and see the Just Saying and Scintillol match, so I found that one online. Yeah, the YouTube tournament, like the people who kind of just like upload every tournament that happens to YouTube are just saints. I love them so much. They make life so much easier for kind of catching up on tournaments. And I just kind of want to go and watch Scintillol just tilt out of this world, because it's always hilarious to watch that.
Oh man,
you can just see how angry he gets every time.
To be fair, watching that clip, I got a little angry too. It was bonkers.
Me too.
Yes.
But I did meet Sintalol at the World Championships, and he was actually very nice. So I felt a bit bad about that one for laughing, but when you have a reputation for being a tiltmeister, it's always funny when you get super tilted live on stream. But and then my main takeaway was just that Hunterace is very good at Hearthstone. He is a god, and I really enjoy seeing pictures of him eating ice cream after every tournament he plays in. I don't know why that's a thing, but it's really amusing.
He's ace at playing Hunter.
What?
He's ace at playing Hunter.
But is he? Wait. Wow.
Don't you have to go now, Midgame?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, quite literally, yes. Midgame, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate having you on. It's sorry that we can't stop talking enough that you can make it to work on time and finish a podcast, but really appreciate the work that you put into the Listener League. Are there any Coin Concedes or shout-outs you want to give out early? Because we know you got to go and we want to give you that second to share.
I want to give a Coin Concede to Phenom for coming up with the best deck in the world. Mid-range Hunter back again. It's been a long time since I've been this happy about a deck. So big shout out there. It's a quality deck. You should all play it. And also a shout out to Savannah Highman.
The love of your life.
Always been there for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Special place in your heart.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Midgame. Appreciate having you here, and we will see you around the Discord.
Ciao.
Bye.
And then there were 3. So
The holy trio.
Rip
Yes.
overlay.
it's not even that bad. I'm sure it'll change in a second when the box where his face used to be disappears, but we'll see what happens. So coming soon. First of all, the DreamHack Summer Tournament is this weekend in Sweden. Sweden. The History of Hearthstone is still happening every Wednesday. It's the Tempest Torn Tournament. They're up to Ungoro as of this week. And the HCT Rio, formerly Copa America, the qualifiers of this weekend, it won't be publicly streamed, but there may be individual people streaming it on a delay. There's also a tournament this weekend called the Battle of the Discords. And the Battle of the Discords is a wonderful thing in that it is a bunch of players getting together from different Discords, and there's prize support, and it's totally free. You pay nothing. All you have to do is pay with your time and your energy and representing the community that you're a part of. There's a ton of different communities there, including Team Hearth League, including Wild HS, etc., etc. There's tons of them. The Team Hearth League will actually be streaming some matches. Rebobson, are you streaming any of these matches? Or are you playing? Or neither?
Well, obviously, I have a content ban, so I cannot be streaming any of the matches. But I'm going to be helping stream it in terms of the back end because I'm not allowed to show my face at the moment.
Forgot about that. I'm going to go ahead and mark some notes here to edit out that question. Well, I appreciate your support. Botticus, what are you planning on doing for Battle of the Discords?
I might play in them.
You don't want free stuff?
I mean, I do want free stuff. It's a matter of if I have time.
Yeah.
That's always my issue with tournaments, and I think why I generally prefer laddering is just devoting like multiple hours to playing in the tournament is hard when you're not going to like a physical place where that's what you're there to do. So I keep telling myself every weekend I should be playing in these Challenger Cups, and then I'm just like, I don't want to commit 4 to 5 hours to this thing, but I should be doing that, and I'm going to be doing that eventually. But yeah,
Challenger Cups are such a pain in the ass. It's just like, well, I could devote like 6 hours to maybe a thing, but probably not a thing, just because double elimination is just such a strenuous format. Like, which kind of it does the thing where it kind of punishes you for winning, where it's just like, okay, I won all the way through the winners bracket. Now I have a undetermined break of some kind of length, and I just need to wait for the next 3 hours to see what happens.
And a lot of times, if you're not there, you like go do something else and don't come back for like 5 minutes, and it just so happens that the other person finished their match and checked in right away. Then you get the DQ, and it feels terrible. But yeah, it's with Magic tournaments for me, it was always the best. The best record was to win, and the next best record was to 0-2 drop. It was
Yeah.
because the worst possible place to get was always second, because it means you played the maximum amount of rounds to not get what you wanted.
Yeah, unless you come
Yeah.
second by going through the winners bracket and then just losing the grand final twice. Like if you go through the losers bracket,
Oh
like,
yeah.
if you lost, if you lose the first round, win all the way through the losers bracket, and then just lose the first round of the final, that is the worst feat.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I eagerly wait the opportunity to spend a lot of time to at least make it to the finals. I'll take that. But
You should do it in an EU Challenger Cup, because then myself and Brasky would get to cast you.
that would be terrifying.
I really look forward to getting to cast you at some point, Hat.
Oh yes.
Also getting to play you at some point, because that's coming up soon.
Oh yeah, oh god. All right. So moving on from my worst nightmares.
Moving swiftly on.
Yes, I do want to talk about as well the Swagoy tournament. We've mentioned them a few times. We were partnering with them. They actually are starting up a new kind of membership club league group sort of thing. They have a Swagoy community server where for a small monthly fee, you get private Discord access, you get coaching from the Team Swagoy members, including former guest in the show, Swagoy Edelweiss, who, if you recall, is really good at Hearthstone. And you get entry into a private tournament with cash prizes. So, reasonable prize pool. I think it's somewhere between $100 and $300 prize pool, but there are definitely smaller tournaments while they're starting up. There was a free one last month, and now they're going to be members only. And we actually have been given by the wonderful people over at Team Swagoy 4 1-month memberships to give away. The only thing you have to do to be eligible for that, including, as we said, private Discord access, free coaching, included coaching, and entry into a private tournament with cash prizes, tweet at the Coin Concede account with the hashtag SGCMM. That's SGCMM. Tweet at the Coin Concede account. Say whatever you want. Be nice. With that hashtag, and we will enter you in a raffle. We will pull your names next week, and then the tournament is June 23rd. So, get out there.
Yeah,
Yay.
what Swagoy is doing is really awesome. Like, it's exactly our tagline, making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. This is a perfect example of just ways for you to start playing competitively and start winning money and packs and stuff like that. Like, you should definitely tweet at us, try to get these things, and if you don't happen to win, I strongly suggest joining their membership program. It's just kind of an awesome organization. We're really fortunate that they reached out to us to partner, and we just can't be more happy to try to help support them and what they're trying to do over there.
They're just wonderful people.
True.
Yeah. And they're friends with Rebobson, so anyone can do it over there. It's fine.
Hey, yeah, I mean, I came fourth in the previous one, so you've got a shot, everyone.
Oh yeah, that's right. You played
Swagoy
it.
are, yeah, Swagoy are all the lovely people, very acquainted with.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah, they're THL fixtures and UHL fixtures, and now they're doing their own thing. So definitely check it out. But for now, we've got ourselves a little explanations. Mr. Botticus, why don't you show us how to survive in a meta that's as balanced as this one? Let's do that again. I clicked twice when I thought I only clicked once, and so there was only the trumpet.
It was perfect.
Yes. Now I kind of
So-
want only the trumpet, so I can just randomly we can just be talking and be like trumpet.
Da, 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 da. So this week we were kind of trying to figure out what to do for Dexplanations, and since we've gone on so long in this podcast already, kind of works out that didn't really have, I don't know, like a great topic, but we can go into this thing, how to survive a balanced meta. And Hat wrote this, and I'm about to read it, so hopefully this goes over well because he's much better at words than I am.
Okay, hold on a second. First of all, we make every topic great. Second of all, you shouldn't admit to the listener that you haven't read what you're about to read.
I shouldn't. Why not?
But it's because you have showmanship and natural ability, and you can fake it really well.
Yeah, acting, Botticus.
Acting.
How long have you been casting with me? Well, let's not get into this.
Yes.
There are two types of
Explanation,
metas
just
out
how
there.
bad is Botticus?
Yeah, exactly. So there are two different types of metas out there, with some rare exceptions. Metas defined by one or two key strategies that form a near unshakable foundation of the format, and metas defined by their cyclical nature.
It's they go in circles, Botticus. They go in circles.
Okay. Man, these words are too complicated to have.
It's like, do you know a bicycle?
Yes.
It's like
I ride a lot of bicycles.
it's like the cycle part. It goes in a cycle. It's cyclical.
Okay. All right. So examples of the first, pre-nerf Witchwood. So we had Call to Arms decks and Lackey/Void Lord decks, and then pretty much Knights of the Frozen Throne in all incarnations, mostly Jade Druid, and basically all incarnations revolving around Totem Golem, Shaman Stone from. Gee, I wasn't playing during.
Karazhan?
You can't abbreviate.
One night in Karazhan? Just say Onik.
Oink.
Onik.
Okay.
Oink.
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 One in night Karazhan? That's not.
Got it.
That's not English. Anyway, yes.
I wasn't playing when that set was out, so
You missed some
I didn't
seriously broken
recognize
stuff.
it. I was playing like when it was legal and standard, but either way. All right.
Yeah.
Examples of the second type of metas would be the current meta, or Ungoro, which is one of Hat's favorite metas of all time, and another set that wasn't around for.
Whispers of the Old Gods.
Got it. All right. Notice pattern. I don't, but okay. Rotation is a great equalizer. Hat. What is the pattern? Explain the pattern.
They're all the rotation sets. They're all the first set of any given year.
Okay. So here's the thing. These post-rotation metas that evolve every day can be really frustrating to play in, because what worked yesterday or last week may not work today, and I can definitely relate to that. How you have to play the matchup can change dramatically, and we're here to help you navigate these situations and learn when to hold and when to tech and when to switch. So it looks like Hat will take over this next part as I stumble through that first part flawlessly.
Ah, you did fine. Listen, if that section was a meta, you were like League of Explorers. People will remember it fondly. Yeah, I'll stick with that analogy. So you have to know, when do I keep doing what I'm doing? When do I change it a little bit? When do I change it a lot? In terms of when you keep doing what you're doing, if you keep running into decks that just aren't prepared for what you're about to do, that's a good sign. It's kind of that feeling of when you go against a Taunt Warrior and you were a Cube Warlock, and you just keep making Doom Guards and then they die and you're like, good? That's how you know that you're really favored. If you get that feeling a lot of what you're doing just seems so well situated against what everyone else is trying to do, it's usually pretty clear when you get to that level. Sometimes it's when there's a more powerful deck, but we're talking specifically about metas where there seems like a less overpowered foundation, overpowered strategy. And this is generally where you can find the edges based on what people are doing right now, as opposed to an overall deck that is just too good. Now, sometimes you'll also run into people that are playing cards that target your strategy, but they don't work very well. I played against Nikolaius and THL last week, and I played double cornered sentry against his taunt druid, and I lost anyways because he just kept the Hadronox on the board and cubed it. And I was like, oh, well, if you ever witching Howard, I'd sure show you, but he didn't. He just beat me. So it's when you're playing these tech cards.
So yeah, I was actually doing a co-op with Risen last night, and we were playing, and he just was like, okay, they use both executes, so now I can just play this Hadronox and not do anything to it, and then I'll just cube it next turn, and we win that way. And I was like, whoa, that's like next level. He's like, well, yeah, Nikolai's did it to me in the Coin Concede Listener League, and so I just am doing it now on ladder. And turns out that's a really good strategy.
I guess we're both
People
getting
beat you
trained.
in new and exciting ways, and then you go, that's a really good idea. I'm going to do that to everyone else from now on.
Yeah. Also, people are learning, maybe stop playing Taunt Warrior as much if you're seeing a lot of people that are good at other decks.
Yes.
And I think that Taunt Warrior is a great example that fits pretty well into this paradigm we're about to talk to. Probably not in the section we're on right now. Probably not in the hold, but I think there are ways to tweak it, and there are also times when it's not the right deck to bring. You also know if your deck is working if you're winning more than you're losing. I know that's a simple thing to say, but it's important. It's important to note. And I think this is the most important part, that you can generally tell if your deck is well aligned if when you slow down and think, you win more. Because that usually means that once you try and balance for factors of player skill or execution, and it comes down to matchups and variance, that if you have the right deck, you're more likely to be well situated. And even if you do have the right deck, if you don't play it well, you could lose. But if you have the right deck and you play it well, you could easily win, because tight technical play is so much more important than every other factor. You'll generally win more with any deck when you slow down, but if you have the right one, you'll really notice how thinking through the turns and the game plans can help you take a good deck to a great deck. And sometimes in formats like this, there is no one deck that's guaranteed to win based on matchups alone. You have to work on the execution.
Yep. And then if that's not working perfectly, but you're close, then maybe you should consider teching your deck. So when you start seeing more close games that come down to quote unquote high rolls, as some people would say, such as like Skull coming out on 5 and you just lose because they get a bunch of demons off of it, or like what's another good example?
Spiteful Summoner on 7.
Yeah. Spiteful Summoner, Spellstone on on 5 with a couple secrets.
Yep.
Ooze Coin Play Dead on 6.
Yeah.
That's a much more relevant one than the Spiteful Summoner in the current meta.
And so if you're seeing stuff like that, if your strategy is consistently almost there, but you just can't get over the finish line or survive the early game against like the more aggressive strategies, or if you have a particular weakness to a specific strategy and or deck, but it doesn't feel hopeless, something like Taunt Druid versus Odd Rogue, but not Freeze Mage versus Control Warrior. So like this really speaks to me because with Recruit Hunter, initially I had a second 2/4 that gets Taunt and Divine Shield.
Lone Champion.
I had a second one in there, and it was performing okay, but it wasn't great every time. And so I just stuck in an Ooze in there, and the Ooze was coming up big for me. It really felt like it helped the high roll situations and also your kind of bad matchup situations against specifically, obviously, Cube Warlock and Odd Paladin. So felt like teching was right, and it got me over the line, so felt good.
Yeah, I've found myself in that situation with the combo Dragon Priest I was playing last week. I was doing really, really well against the slow decks and very poorly against the aggressive decks. And in this metagame, the aggressive decks were all super low to the ground. So I just took out a couple of cards, the Witchwood Pipers that were underperforming for me, and I put in 2 Wild Pyromancers. I will tell you that the Odd Paladin matchup gets a lot better when you get access to a couple Wild Pyromancers. Just by changing those 2 cards, that was enough to make that matchup about even. And before it was decidedly way worse than even.
Yeah, the only thing you have to worry about is over-teching, because you can't just, every deck can't just like put in all of the tech cards, like all of the silences, all of the weapon removal, all of the like weirdly specific AoEs. Like your deck, you still need to make sure your deck is still functioning the way it's supposed to, because if there's one thing that's really good, like we say, the whole coming down to high rolls is a lot of times you need your deck to be able to high roll, and so it needs to be doing a very specific thing every game, and the tech cards should just kind of be splashed in there when you can afford to add them. Like a lot of druid decks have very little, if no, tech cards because their strategy is so linear and very effective. So they don't need the tech cards because they can overpower a lot of the strategies without them.
Yeah, like tech cards need to be able to fit into a strategy. Like Wild Pyro is like a great example of a tech card which aligns with a deck. Like it still kind of influences Combo's Priest's draw engine, while like it furthers their game plan while still kind of helping a bad matchup. Or like something like Gluttonous Ooze and Spiteful Druid. Like their game plan is just kind of play stuff on the early turns. If weapon removal is not relevant, they can still just play a 3-mana 3/3. That's not the worst thing for them. So tech cards need to kind of make some modicum of sense. Like you can't just shove weapon removal in a deck. You can't put Acidic Swamp Ooze in a deck with Oaken Summons. That would be really dumb, and I've definitely done it before. Don't make that mistake.
So what about when none of that's working? Why don't you go over the next section, Harry Potterson?
Good one. So if your deck may not be the best meta choice, if it might not be the thing, how would you kind of see the signs there? So one thing would be that you seem to be weak to multiple different approaches in the meta, like especially as metas start to stabilize. With still, I think, nowhere near that point. Everything's kind of going in and out of fashion right now. So you kind of need to make this on a much more day-by-day basis. But you can kind of make a good read on things by just like looking on, so something like Aegis Replay, one of the most popular decks today. And if you're kind of seeing that there's multiple of those approaches which do very well against what you're playing right now, that is generally a good sign that you want to kind of switch things up, at least for the time being. Another one, talk about data. A new Data Reaper report comes out, and all of a sudden your worst matchups become super popular. Very relevant to what I just said. Obviously, multiple sources of data. Obviously, Hat has plugged Vicious Syndicate here. Whatever data you use is acceptable, I would say.
Yeah, I plug that here because it's a weekly recurring report that is particularly highly valued and people are aware of. HS Replay kind of makes their living out of constantly updating, right? Like the data is right there at your fingertips whenever you want it. Vicious Syndicate, it's every Thursday, same time every week. It's a week and a half after the meta comes out, so it's so consistent that oftentimes the day it comes out, you will see the ladder shift. You can actually see it. That's probably the most relevant weekly event in terms of what shapes the ladder that we have.
Yeah, but like this was the point I was making. The meta right now is so volatile that week by week can be kind of too slow. Vicious Syndicate does actually do the thing, like you say. It kind of warps the meta itself. People will react to the Vicious Syndicate report. So that's like on the day or two after Vicious Syndicate comes out, that's definitely the better resource to go to. But kind of like a few days after that, the meta is evolving so quickly that having a resource which can also go day by day is also quite valuable. Because everyone keeps changing what they play. Like Taunt Warrior is kind of like the best example of a deck which was kind of like the big thing, which has completely fallen off. Because people kind of adapt to it. Their good matchups become less good, and people stop playing the bad matchups. Like, say, Token Druid stopped being played because Quest Warrior disappeared, and then Taunt Druid has kind of become the new thing. So now Taunt Warrior has become a lot worse. Everything's kind of shifting at a very rapid rate. So you need to kind of keep up with things, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. And then a good, so another good indicator that your deck may not be the best choice is that your best draws are not consistently winning you games despite everything going to plan. That's generally the best indicator that a deck is kind of not performing. Like, you play the matchup, like you play the deck well, you kind of execute your game plan, and even despite all that, you still lose. Or I would say also if you win, but it feels like it was a lot more of a struggle than it needed to be. Like if you are, say, playing I think Token Druid's a good example here. Like, Token Druid has some quite good matchups in the current meta, but it still kind of struggles against a lot of things people playing, things like Even Lock or Taunt Druid. Like, you say you have like an amazing Token Druid hand and you're up against a Taunt Druid, which is the most popular deck right now, I think. Like, you get your absolute nut draw, but you still kind of will often struggle to get across the line just because of the really big taunts will kill all your tokens once you have a draw, and then you are left with nothing. Do you guys have any other examples you can think of like decks which nut draw and still don't quite get there?
Like, I had a few games where I was playing Even Lock, and I would go turn 3 Giant, turn 4 Giant, turn 5 Twilight Drake, and still lose to some of the Taunt Druid decks. And it just feels bad. Like, obviously, most of those times I was doing that, and they were going Wild Growth into Nourish, into Oakheart, and you just lose those games a lot of the time. Even with the busted Giant starts. But
I think Even Lock is like the best example, like at this exact moment, of a deck which is very good but probably not the best placed deck for this meta. Like, Miracle Rogue is super popular and Taunt Druid are super popular, and both of those decks do very, very well against Even Lock. And because Taunt Druid and Miracle Rogue are the most popular things, Big Spell's kind of rising in popularity as kind of a deck which eats Taunt Druid for breakfast and does pretty well, like 50-50 against Miracle Rogue. And that
I also
deck
see a lot of Odd Paladin has been popping up a lot lately. And Odd Paladin and Odd Rogue, because both of those have a pretty favorable matchup against Miracle Rogue, I feel like. And also, if like, it's pretty good against Taunt Druid since they don't have Spreading Plague, and they lean really heavily on Primordial Drake. Yeah,
and if they're dead before Primordial Drake happens, then they're screwed.
Yeah, or if you get level upped before the Primordial Drake happens, they can generally push through it.
Yeah. So Even Lock's kind of the latest victim of this meta, like the third or fourth in about 2 weeks. And then getting back to how to tell if your deck may not be the best choice. There's quite an obvious thing that we should talk about, and that is just if you don't feel very comfortable with the deck. That one should kind of go out without saying, but we should probably mention it anyway. If you aren't very comfortable with the way a deck plays, if it's not kind of suited to your own particular playstyle, if it's like a super greedy control deck when you're kind of not super used to playing super greedy control decks, perhaps, or you don't really like playing aggro and it's an aggro deck, you don't get the kind of ins and outs of the different aggro mirrors, then that's probably a good indication that maybe it's not the deck that you should be playing, unless you really want to kind of practice this deck and get good with it. Obviously, not everyone has the time to be kind of grinding out a deck that they're not great at. And if a deck is not something you are likely to enjoy playing in such a diverse metagame where there's so many alternative options for what to play, it's probably just a better idea to find a deck that you enjoy more And because decks that you enjoy more will do better for you, because when you're having fun with the game, you're going to play better. And we talk about this a lot, and it's always worth remembering that Hearthstone is a game. It's supposed to be fun. Winning isn't everything. Have fun, and you will actually just win more as a side effect.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's something to be said for learning styles, but you're right that if we're talking about choosing a deck to bring to ladder to gain stars, a deck that you're not comfortable with, there is value in doing it, but it takes more time, it takes more energy, and it will likely be initially counter to your original goal.
Yeah.
There is definitely value in switching decks to learn multiple different styles, to learn how they win so you can beat them, but it's going to take more time. It's definitely more of an approach that you need if you're going to play a tournament, because you need to know how these other decks function. But in terms of just as a pure function of ladder, there will be times where you'll play a deck and you know it's good, you see the numbers everywhere on Data Reaper and HS Replay and all that, and you pick it up and you play it and you're like, I cannot stand playing this, I like nothing about it, and then just move on. Unless you're in a meta where it's so unbalanced that you have to play it, you can play something else, and we're specifically talking about metas where you don't have to do that.
Yeah, like this one. There are so many options right now. There's something for everyone right now. You can play like Odd Rogue or Odd Pal, and if you like aggro, you can play like Spiteful Druid or Even Lock if you like mid range. You can play Miracle if you like kind of combo, or even Malagos Druid. Or if you like super greed, you can play something like Quest Priest. You should totally play Quest Priest.
No, don't. You should not. Yeah. Don't play Quest Priest.
I also would be doing mid-game a disservice if I didn't say you can play mid-range Hunter.
Could do that too. There is something.
I'm kidding. I'm considering playing some games with Quest Priest because it seems like it's actually like it's a very powerful deck. It does some very powerful things.
Yeah. Although I would add that you don't really kind of consider playing games with Quest Priest. You consider playing a game. They go so long.
Don't bring it to HCT Seoul. That's all we're saying.
Oh, yeah, not
or Sottle will throttle you.
Yes. Yeah. The only other thing I would say, just to wrap this up a little bit, is that if you're playing a deck a lot and you do want to practice it, and you're just losing a lot more than you're winning, and practice isn't helping, even if you can see that you're making different plays with the deck, that's a really good indicator of just stop banging your head against the wall. This meta changes so fast. Like, there's so much that goes on. You can see the first week, the first couple days, Big Spell Mage was everywhere. And then everyone's like, well, Big Spell Mage is everywhere. Let's play Token Druid, which oddly beats it, and Taunt Warrior. And then people saw that Token Druid and Taunt Warrior everywhere, so they said, hey, let's dust off these Defiles and play these things. And you can see the different evolutions the meta has gone through. There's no reason for it to stop now. And there's just going to be more and more development. If a deck isn't winning for you, and you're practicing it, and you say, I really want to learn it, now isn't the time. Now is the time to get the experience. You definitely want to get a little bit of wheel time, just so you understand how the deck functions so you can beat it. But there are so many decks that 2 weeks ago were everywhere, and now are nowhere to be seen. Or even some decks that were around and then went away and then came back. There's a lot of evolution. General strategies and play skill in undecided meta is going to suit anyone a lot better now than it will than learning a specific archetype, except maybe Q-Block will probably do.
Still there, still holding on, still being the bane of everyone's life. It's still worth running Weapon Hate just for that one deck.
Yeah, well,
and Malagos Druid
and Vine Cleaver,
I suppose, and Vine Cleaver.
Yeah, and the and Dagger. Yeah, and there's actually a lot of good reasons to run Weapon Hate. Probably should go put Oozes and Harrisons in your decks.
Yeah, seems valid.
And Dragon Soul.
No,
it's Dragon Soul.
That's not a real reason.
I was getting some residual Weapon Hate when I was playing Malagos Druid, and that always felt bad when I would get oozed.
When you get oozed on one weapon hit left, it's like, oh, well, crap. What do I do now?
It's 1 durability and you're on 9 mana already. Well, I guess that was a wild growth with no card draw.
Yeah, I actually got oozed on with like 7 mana once. That was really weird, but I also still lost that game very easily. So Big Mage can be rough if they have the weapon removal.
Big Mage. So much fun. But so weird. It's always so weirdly placed in any meta because it's so polarized. It's just like, well, if everyone starts playing Shadow Walk, I just die all the time.
Yeah. Well, and oddly, it was poorly situated against Token Druid because you had all these clears once, but you needed to clear twice, and you could never do that. And so it's
You needed exactly 2 Dragon's Furies. You could do that once.
Or you
and
have
that-
to high roll off of Lich King.
yeah, Death and Decay.
Or you like save a coin and like or like if they also misplayed and you like go wide on purpose to get your to like be able to freeze them over multiple turns when they try to do like a spreading plague type things instead of
I found my main win condition in that matchup was generally just the Token Druid playing badly more than anything I could do, and that is a side of a really bad matchup.
Yeah.
Like, although Baron Geddon as Death and Decay felt very good the one time it did happen.
Oh man, that's amazing. Well, we're getting pretty long in the show, so we're gonna head to the outro because I think the question we've all been waiting for.
How long can this go on?
Well, when we add in a lot of guests from all over the world, it is a pleasantly long podcast, but I think it's time to start our wind down today. So, thanks to Stefan L for letting us use his cover. Check him out in his channel, linked in our show notes. Big thanks to Hearthstone Top Decks, BeerBrick.com for Decklists, and Hearthstone Tournaments on YouTube for tournament VODs. You're the real MVP. Thanks to Old Guardian for his amazing tournament analysis. The show notes for this week's episode are on our website at CoinConcede.com. You can support our show at Patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live at Twitch.tv/CoinConcede Join our community chats and our Discord at Discord.CoinConcede.com. Write into our email at CoinConcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. If you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.CoinConcede.com. Big thanks to our producer.
It's so fluffy!
Big thanks to Swagoa Gaming for partnering with us and Hype for Battle of the Discord this weekend. Rebobson, who would you like to coin concede to this week? That's what we call shoutouts because we're doing a bit.
I'd like to coin concede to Vote No Confidence and the Boars. Shout out to those guys. They're the best. They're the best teams ever.
Oh yes, your THL teams.
Pardon?
Those are your THL teams for those uninitiated.
Yes. Vote No Confidence, inspired by Hat, of course. And the Boars, who I genuinely can't remember our full name. So just going to go with Boars. Coin concede to those guys. Shout out.
Yep.
How about you, Hat?
It's the number of boars that they kill in the South Park episode where they play Warcraft. 65 million something boars. It's usually short of 65 million.
65,340,285 boars.
Don't know how you didn't remember that.
Me either, to be honest.
Yeah.
How about you, Hat?
I have a couple. I have a few. I have 3. First, Virtute. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Virtute. Virtute. I've seen him in a bunch of different Discords. I know that he's been a longtime supporter over at Velen's Chosen. But also, I was in Seattle this weekend, and he gave me some excellent recommendations for places to eat and drink and be merry, and substantively made my vacation better. So big shout-outs to Virtute. Thank you very much. Cardigan, he's a THL member and a very positive guy. Had some kind words for me. Reassurance this week after some unpleasantness in THL. So I really want to say thank you for your positivity there. And Meta Legend, which last week we talked about Robot Moon, which kind of listed all the recent high legend replays. Meta Legend sorts by player. So we have a listing of pro players and which decks they were playing, their deck lists, and their replays. Totally awesome resource. Check it out at MetaLegend. I think it is .net. Nope, .com. MetaLegend.com. Check it out, and it's just a really useful tool and should help make anyone better if you're able to see this really high-level play and specific matchups and specific players. Botticus, got any coin concedes over there, buddy?
I'm going to coin concede to Risen. I did a co-op with him last night, and it was a lot of fun. Played some Taunt Druid. He's a really good guy. If you guys should really check out his stream if you get the chance. Very good player, member of the Coin Concede community, all around great guy. So check him out. That's it.
Yeah, he's a good dude. For where we can find our friend Rebobson here, well, where should we look for you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet, obviously on Twitter, @Rebobson. I'm normally a lot swearier than I have been on this podcast for PG-13 reasons, so I don't know, vulgar language warning, I guess. And of course, you can find me on Around the Hearth, my own Hearthstone podcast, which streams at 7:30 p.m. on twitch.tv/AroundTheHearth every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and is available on all the usual podcast formats from Tuesday of every week onwards. And of course, you can also find us on Twitter.com at AroundTheHearth and Facebook.com/AroundTheHearth. So if you want to hear more of my wonderful, not quite as good as Midgame's accent, that is where you can find me talking a whole lot more, as well as various casting things for THL, UHL, Black Claws, etc., etc. So, Botticus, where can people find you?
So I'm on Twitter at BotticusHS. I know I said I was going to stream this last weekend, but I was pretty lazy, so I didn't. But hopefully this weekend we'll get some streaming in. That's twitch.tv/Botticus. I feel like I need to start maybe like streaming coaching sessions for patrons that are okay with me streaming those, just so I get more hours in there or something. I have to figure out more times to be able to stream because I don't do enough of it.
Please stream more. I'd like that. You can find Midgame at twitter.com/MidgameHS. He streams once in a blue moon, but I haven't seen too many of them lately. He did cast our Listener League finals, though, and the videos are up on our YouTube. You can find me at Twitter at RidiculousHat, twitch.tv/RidiculousHat, and Thursdays and Mondays, you can find me streaming it's usually pretty late in the evening. I'll tweet that out. Yeah. Or pretty early in Rebobson's morning. And
Yes.
That is all we have for today. I know. I can't believe it. But until next time, keep calm and rogue on. And if you see us on the ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Take cold comfort in your victory. You win. I can rest now. You win. For now. Now, your victory proves nothing.
The day is yours.
I choose death. You have triumphed. This time, this hunt is yours.